yes. Right, I think we're live.
We may be live.
We're live, yes. We are live indeed.
We may be in a state of living.
Yeah. Okay, let's maximize that and put the chat on the right-hand side. Right, hello, everyone. Right, first of all...
Good afternoon.
You are... Yes. What's up, Ducani? You are late, but so are we, so it's fine. Okay. Right, how is audio? Does my voice sound all right? Caradog, can you say something so they can see if your voice sounds all right?
Yes, you should be hearing us in mono. We shouldn't be left and right balanced.
Excellent, good.
Because that was something we double-checked just before we went live.
Yes. Can I see the screen from here? Yeah, I want to do a quick test just to make you guys go, ah! So if I
want to you now.
Yeah. So now I'll switch off mono. So now we've got stereo audio. Now you say something in their left ear.
Should be your left ear.
Yeah. Or is it the wrong way round, actually? Am I in your...
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Imagine that. You're looking at the image and the sound from the person on the left is coming from the right and the sound from the...
Am I in your left ear or your right ear?
And by right, we don't mean correct.
Yeah. So, yes, I should be in the right ear for Caradog. That's correct because Caradog is on the right of the picture.
Yes.
So, yeah. However, yes.
Fabulous.
This isn't what we're actually going to run because I think this probably sounds really obnoxious. So we'll just go back to mono. So yeah, it's we're using we've got the Rode Wireless Go Duo now. So I've had the Rode Wireless Go microphone for a while, which I've used in some videos in the past before we had all the sound deadening up. However, for the podcast, and it was really, really noticeable last week when we were doing the desk. You know, we start like when Caradog showed up to do the podcast last week, I was like, it suddenly occurred to me, we do not have the correct microphone for what we're doing today. All we have is the condenser mic, which can pick up an entire room, but that's not what condensers are supposed to do.
Maybe 1.5 meters.
Yeah, last week we desperately needed wireless lavs like what we've got now. So I've got some now. We've got the Rode Wireless Go Duo, and so this is what I want to make the main microphone setup for the podcast, because now we don't have to have an idiot condenser microphone sitting in front of us all the time, blocking the way. So yeah. Anyway, Caradog launch a poll. Preferred the stereo. Okay. Oh, it's much nicer in stereo. Okay.
All I also need to do now is colour this in with the correct coloured pen, and then it can disappear entirely.
Well, it was available in white, and certainly on for me, I wear dark clothing, so I need a black one. But for you wear pink shirts all the time, so a white one would actually have disappeared in well enough. But yeah, apparently it sounded better in stereo. I by the looks of things, I think the stereo will be too aggressive. Well, what's going on is one mic goes to the right channel exclusively, the other mic goes to the left channel exclusively. So in post, you can split the microphones.
But also it's a case, I think, because of how close we are.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of bleed.
Not particularly directional. There's quite a lot of bleed.
Yeah. And also we've got the gain on them turned up to a ridiculous amount because we're just going into the mic jack on a PC. Like when we used the Rode Wireless Go directly into your camera.
Oh God, it was super hot.
It was super hot because the camera had a preamp in it. We're not going into a microphone preamp. Actually, that's what we need, isn't it? We need to get like a little preamp box or something. Do you think that's a good idea?
Depends how much you want to spend. Because to get something that isn't going to reduce the quality, you're going to need to spend a reasonable amount of money. So it's kind of a case of or you can do it in OBS and also not have quality problems kind of thing. Yeah.
I mean,
it feels like it's fixing a problem that you don't really need to fix by spending money.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of wanted an XLR interface for a while anyway.
Yeah, I need to research XLR interfaces again just because I want to see if you can get dual input ones for not crazy money. Because it'd be nice to have the ability to run 2 microphones, 1 input, etc., and do all of the stuff with that, and mic up as though it was actually a podcast, and just have dynamic microphones here.
Yes. Oh no, I wouldn't find that comfortable. Whenever I see other podcasters and they've got just dynamic microphones here, I'm just like, I mean, I suppose Yeah, I don't know. Honestly,
Hello there. This is now an ASMR stream.
Look, I'm going to say it. I don't like the sound of dynamic mics right up against the mouth. I don't like the sound of it. Yeah,
Perhaps you're not the target audience.
Maybe not. Yeah, I prefer something that's a bit more of a room mic. I think it sounds more natural because you're seeing someone in a room. So having it sound like they're in your ears doesn't seem correct to me. Because obviously everyone sets up a podcast like it's audio only. And if you're going to listen to it audio only, yeah, well, absolutely, that makes it sense. But if you're watching it with video, I find the in your ears sound of a dynamic in your microphone, a dynamic mic in your mouth to be a bit weird.
Yeah.
So yeah. And the general consensus is that the stereo was nicer but too aggressive. And that tallies basically with some finagling, with some tinkering.
Faffing.
Yeah, with some tinkering, I might be able to fix that so we can use the stereo, but I might be able to just balance it a bit more. There's probably something I can do to solve that. But we're not going to do that now because
I'd imagine there's possibly an option even on the actual receiver itself.
Oh yeah.
Possibly.
Oh, you've got me wondering now, but it's over there off camera. I'm not going to fiddle with it now, but I plugged in the mic literally 30 seconds before we started today. We spent a lot of time on camera setup today, and then like Caradog was just like, "Oh, you've got 2 minutes to set up the mic," and I was like, "Welp." So
yeah.
So yeah. Let's see. Stereo not sounding good. Yeah, I think the stereo is good in concept. It just needs to be less aggressive. $50 audio interface will do fine. Yeah, will it improve things though? Not sure. If we wanted to plug in XLR mics, a $50 audio interface would probably do the job. But we're looking for something to amplify the mics. And yeah, I find these Rode mics, unless you're plugging in discrete microphones into them, are just good enough as it is.
Yeah.
They don't sound as nice as a condenser microphone does, but obviously they give us a huge amount more convenience.
It's also kind of a case of defining what nice is, because they will have different pickup patterns and different pickup ranges and different ways they modify your voice.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a case of it's finding microphones that generate the sound that you want. That's why obviously there's 1,000 different microphones used in professional spaces.
Yeah.
Because they'll have different tonal qualities.
Yeah.
For no better word. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, mono is okay. Stereo is a bit better, but yeah. I think that's the consensus. The stereo was better, just not that aggressive. And we found this the last time we tried to fiddle with stereo when we were doing it from home. And I was tinkering with putting stereos separating us out. We found that literally like 0.5 decibel of separation was enough to give a pleasant effect. And if we went any more than that, it sounded obnoxious. And we're definitely more than 0.5 decibel of separation at the moment. So, but yeah, interesting. Also, just to actually get onto a tech talk, Dale just said, get asked this all the time. What's the best soldering iron to upgrade to from a bargain basement one? Honestly, TS100 or a Pine Sill. The Pine 64 Pine Sill is a really, really, really good budget soldering iron.
Because it's what, $20, $25?
$25, not including delivery.
Yeah.
So, you know, by the time you got it delivered, it's probably going to be $35. But still, $35, who cares? You know. It's a really good soldering iron, and it gives you access to all of the interchangeable tips of that type of soldering iron. So it gives you access to alternate tips, which is the biggest deal of getting off of just a $5 soldering iron from a hardware store, is a heater in the tip, not in the iron, and actually useful interchangeable tips. So that's why I'm a huge advocate of that. I'm sure people can recommend cheap Hackos, but a cheap Hacko is probably going to be like $150+. So if you're into 3 figures, I think you're out of the budget range. When we're talking about soldering, when we're talking about soldering equipment and stuff, like you know, we can start going into the realms of JVC hot air stations that cost $700. So budget is a relative term. But for me, in my opinion, as, you know, speaking as a semi-professional kind of thing, you know, like I do board repair professionally, but I don't do it all day, every day. My opinion, most equipment, anything less than $100 is budget. That is my definition of budget.
Yeah.
So to that extent, pine sol is probably your best choice. And also, even if you end up getting an even higher end iron than that later on down the line, I think every workshop should have a TS100 or a pine sol in it, because they're just so useful. You can power them from anything. You can put all kinds of tips on them. They're just good to have lying around. You can put it in your pen pot on the desk. And if you're doing something and you're like, I need another iron, I need to dual wheel to get something off the board, you've got another iron that you just plug into a laptop charger.
Yeah. So it's also, what's there's the one that Sai has got. That's effectively the cheap knockoff of the TS100.
Yeah.
Which I always forget. It's something like the
something?
S101 or something like that.
SQ1. It's not a secure. I think it's a secure brand.
I can't remember. It might be.
Yeah.
But
because Secure have got a couple of cheap soldering irons, with the D60 being the bottom end of it. And and the D60 is functional, but the problem is it's about the same price as a pine sol, so it's just...
Yeah, and the pine sol is nicer.
Yeah.
In basically every regard, unfortunately.
Because like I still need to do a review of the Secure D60, because I've been sitting on it for months, and basically the bottom line of that video is going to be, this soldering iron is great for the price. The problem is the pine sol exists and costs the same. So basically, if the pine sol is out of stock, then buy this. If the pine sol is in stock, then you buy the pine sol.
Yeah.
So Ben Laird, thank you for the $5. Hello from Scotland. How are you doing? Arnold G's coming in as well with the Headphone A8 or A9. I'm not familiar with those ones. I'll have to look those up and see what they're like.
Adam says, I have arrived for my weekly conversation in English.
I appreciate that. Also, there was another comment back here. Where was it? Oh, yeah. Vladimir says, it's always funny when I watch some interview on YouTube where the host has a $400 microphone and the calling guest uses their $5 earphones, and they both sound equally good. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that super expensive studio mics are a waste of money. However, when you're doing something over the internet where 9 times out of 10 the platform is mangling the audio anyway, I think you can do an awful lot with not very much.
Yeah.
And I think actual studio equipment like $400, $600 microphones, I don't think that's worth doing unless you're doing a studio recording, which is not what we're making YouTube videos, man.
Yeah.
YouTube is going to mangle whatever you upload anyway, you know, by studio standards.
It's also a case of, to a degree though, that it will be the range of situations in which it will sound good. Because obviously the headphone little thing that comes bundled with your phone will sound fine when you're sat down, not moving, in your room, there's no breeze.
Yeah.
That's it,
That's
kind
true.
of thing.
Yeah.
But the studio mic, you could have a fan on in the room, you could have background noise, things like that, and you'll be able to isolate the voice from that.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's stuff like that. So it's kind of a case of, they should end up sounding the same, but it's the range of situations that you can make it sound the same in, kind of thing.
Yeah, like back in 2018, I think it was, or 2000, might have been 2019. I think it was 2018 was the first EGX I went to, and I was practicing while I was there. I did release a video called "Stuff What I Saw at EGX," using another highly searchable title. However, I was practicing doing a trade show video where I'd be like, hi, I'm at EGX and here we've got the Corsair booth and they've got all the latest Corsair stuff and stuff like that. And I was practicing that, and I was just shooting on my mobile phone, just going, blah, 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 you know, selfie camera kind of thing. The audio was terrible because, of course, it was. I was at a trade show where there was very, very high noise all around me. I was audible, and I was actually surprised at how well my phone coped with that, because I was cupping the phone's mics toward my face and stuff like that. However, Like, if I go to EGX either later this year or next year, I'm going to rock up with the Rhodes, and it's going to sound like there's no one else in the room. Or, it's going to be almost kind of thing,
certainly by comparison.
Yeah, by comparison. Yeah. And that's the difference. And, but then for context, the Rode Wireless Duo, which is what we've got here, this set of wireless lapel mics was it £300? I think it's
£300 new, and you got this
I got a warehouse
for like 210.
It was 208, wasn't it?
Or
yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, this was a warehouse one, so it was open box, but they'd never been used. The seals were on everything. Someone had just torn open the box and been like, "I don't want this," and sent it back. So yeah, I paid £208 for the Wireless Duo. You can get the solo kit for less, obviously.
Yeah.
But as you can hear, this is what you get for £208 worth of wireless microphones
with zero setup. I will say there is zero setup, zero EQ. There is none of the actual setup you'd want to do on microphones. This is literally straight out box, straight in back of computer. We opened the box 15 minutes ago, kind of thing. But so also, it's serviceable, but it's certainly a case of it needs tweaking to get to actual decent quality kind of thing.
Yes.
But it's a case of...
It also bears mention, though, that's exactly what I like about these, is that I've literally just plugged it into the microphone port on the PC, and you have this level of audio.
Yeah, it's wirelessly. It's certainly usable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also kind of a case of, to do the tweaking you'd need to do, it's probably going to be a couple of hours to get a couple % kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, apparently we are actually having tech issues. Apparently it froze. I did spot my preview lock up at one point, and apparently there were some audio issues. I think that's because of the lockup. Could everyone just refresh your view? Just refresh the page if you've got lip sync issues, and it should clear up. I think there's been a bit of stutter here and there. Is there anything doing anything in here? There shouldn't be. I'm just going to make sure the gaming PC is on. I'm just going to make sure that's not downloading updates via Steam or something stupid
it's also
like that.
It's also got Studio open, so I don't know if Studio's being dumb. YouTube Studio. So yeah.
Steam has tried to download something.
Oh, perhaps it was Steam then.
Yeah. Oh, no,
blame Steam.
Don't know. Either way, I'm going to quit Steam. I've just remembered, now I've walked away from the bench, I don't have to shout across the room.
Hello, over there! Oh yes, I'm on a wireless mic, never mind. I hope the limiter works!
Let's close that because we don't need it. There we go.
Yeah.
Anyway, if it's being squicky for you, just refresh the view, it should clear up.
Absolutely, but yes.
You're welcome, Chris.
You are most welcome.
Yeah. Okay, anyway.
I think that's the problem as well. I need to remember that I talk here, then I talk here, then there's like way up here.
That's why it's really hard to sound check, because we did sound check before we started. We did the mic check, 1, 2, this is me talking in normal voice, and we check the meter and stuff like that. But it's really hard to do that in a realistic manner, because when you sound check, you try and speak loudly, but then in the heat of the moment, or if you do a bit, you might suddenly speak twice as loud as that. So,
we also did set the limiter to be less limitery.
Yeah, maybe I backed the limiter off too much.
Possibly we need a little bit more on that as well. But yes,
I'll just dial the limiter in a bit more if it was breaking people's ears.
This is fabulous though that this is possible.
Yes. Now that we have 2 of them,
just wireless mics, wireless keyboards, and mice.
Yes, this is why I'm such a slut for wireless stuff, because of this.
Very well. That's some phrasing.
With that exact phrasing, lots of everyone's always just like, oh, I don't need wireless stuff and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, but wireless is amazing, So yeah. Did someone say something, or are you just?
Oh, Chris.
Oh, I see. Look, but. When I was using the Wireless Go to record mainline videos, if I stopped to go through the bathroom, I paused the video, and then I would be like, "No, I'm just taking it off." I paused the video, but I'm still taking the microphone off. We're not even entertaining that, Right, I'm just going to try and... I can't read what's on the screen. I'm just going to type in 3 and hope that gives me 3 decibels. There we go. That should... Oh, no, that's not... I wanted 6 decibels is the default. All right.
You also want -6.
Oh, yeah. -6. That looks more like it. There we go. All right, there we go. The limiter's back in at -6, so that the limiter should kick in a bit earlier now. Oh, I've just done something weird as well. Yeah. Oh no, hang on a sec. I can't read any of the scenes, so I'm just going to go through scenes until we find the one we're looking for. There it is.
This is a professional production.
See, the problem now is, this is the problem because of the new bench, is the workbench that has the recording computer on it is now on the other side of the room, and we have a separate bench. So now the actual YouTube rig is over there, and I can see the preview. I've got turned the monitor to face me. I can't read any of the text, so I just have to click on things and hope it works. So what we're thinking of, what I said to Caradog just before we started, we should probably set up like a remote desktop connection or something like that, so we're remoted into that computer on the laptop or something like that. But yeah, suddenly thought we were in Australia. Yeah. So,
hello, Paul.
Yeah. So yeah, you'd honestly like one of these wireless mics? Yeah, I've often considered using this at home when doing game streams and stuff, but a condenser sounds better. That's the bottom line. Condensers are better than this. However, if you need a setup where you can't have the condenser within half a meter of your face, this will work better. So, yeah. Did I speak to the 280X guy? I'll be honest with you, I didn't. I haven't gotten around to it today. This week has gone a little bit slow because where we've been remodeling the workshop, I've slowed down on repairs because half the benches have had boxes stacked up on them where everything came off of the floor to go on a bench, and then benches were moved around and all sorts.
I'm now thinking I should have taken a picture just before we started sorting everything. Yeah, just being like, this though.
Yeah, we were going to do a time lapse and stuff like that, but we just didn't get round to it. And
well, because I forgot the power adapter.
Oh, that was why.
And then I literally went, I'm buying another one. And I'm leaving it here, because then that can't happen.
Yeah. Anyone know if the Pinecil and TS100 are compatible with each other's tips? Yes. Yes, they are. Pinecil and TS100 take the same tips.
And also the secure D60, D100, whatever it was.
Yes.
And there was another one that someone was saying was compatible as well, and I can't remember what it was now.
Yeah, but basically any of these small electronic irons, they're all going to say, because I think the tip is the same. I think it's the same connections and pinning as the Hacko tips.
Just shorter.
Yeah, just shorter.
Just the entire thing is
because
shorter.
I'm actually planning on buying, I forget the model number of it, but there's a Hacko or Hacko. Hacko or Hacko? Hacko like hay or Hacko like to hack something? Argue amongst yourselves. There's a Hacko tip that Paul Daniels uses that is, it's a knife edge style tip, but it's a really small one. And I think that seems to be the magic tip that I probably want. And I've been meaning to buy one of those. It's probably going to cost me about 60 quid. And most of the time the tips I buy are like £7 or £8. So it's expensive, but it's a Hacko tip. So it should be a god tier tip to help me get better at micro soldering. So I want to buy one anyway, just to see if I put on a super duper tip on my soldering iron and just magically get better at micro soldering, because that's the thing. It's a balance between technique and equipment. Equipment will help, so will technique. And sometimes you need the better equipment to help you go, okay, good, I am doing the right thing. Now the equipment can do it as well, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, because it's always that never-ending sort of cat and mouse thing of, oh, I'm now better at this, therefore I need better equipment. Oh, the equipment is so much better than me. Oh, I'm now better than my equipment, and kind of that cycle. And just accurately knowing where you are on that cycle, whether you know that whether you are not good enough for the equipment you have, or if the equipment isn't good enough for the stuff you're attempting to do.
Yeah. Because
you can spend an awful lot of money on stuff you don't need if you think that it's the equipment.
Yeah. And yeah, that's the thing. I have a massive negative bias toward the belief that you have to spend £1,000 on equipment in order to get started on something. And I've seen people multiple times, say sort of, oh, those electronic irons are rubbish. You've got to get a proper hacker or a Weller or something like that. It's like, no, you don't. I have proven in videos that you don't. However, it's important to understand that cheaper irons do have their limits, and it depends on how far you're going. Eventually you will reach the limits. But also, I think there's tremendous value in starting with cheap equipment so you can understand where the limitations of equipment are. So when you're struggling with something,
sometimes.
It depends.
I would say starting with the correct cheap equipment, if that makes sense. Because I think there's no value in starting with a cheap iron that's got the heater and the handle, and stuff like that.
Which is why I don't recommend.
Less money, you can buy an electronic soldering arm with a heater in the tip and stuff like that.
Yeah, which is why I don't recommend the WEP 2-in-1 stations, which is where I started out. Yeah. Because initially I was like, these seem great. They're about 40 or 50 quid for a soldering iron and hot air station in one box. That's, even knowing the limitations of it, that seems like a great place to start. However, these days I'm just like, no, just spend £120 on a quick 857 and an electronic soldering iron, because yes, that is 2 or 3 times the price of a WEP 2-in-1 station, but that will get you very far, as opposed to the 2-in-1 station, which you will hit the limits of within a couple of weeks of practice.
Yeah.
The WEP 2-in-1 stations are just good money after bad.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well is,
you could would you say that it would be a fair comment to say you basically can't do board repair with them in any competent fashion?
I think that might be a bit extreme, because you can use I can use the WEP to do I can use the WEP to change blown fuses, and I could change dead capacitors, and I could desolder BIOS chips with it.
Fair enough.
So, and those are that's the cheap low-hanging fruit that I tell people to look out for when they're trying to get started on board repair, because that's the easy stuff. And I learned how to do that with my WEP 2-in-1 station.
Yeah.
So you could do it, but again, it's kind of a case of, if you're actually learning to do this, well, I'm trying to find the balancing point of being negatively against people saying you've got to spend this amount on equipment, but also saying, but you do need to spend £100 or £200 on equipment, because also you're going to have to buy your hot air station, your soldering iron. You're going to want some accessories. You're going to want some solder. You're going to want some solder wick. You're going to need to get some flux. You're going to have to spend a couple of £100.
Yeah,
just not £1,000.
Yeah, it's also the case. So I would say that again, from the perspective of someone who's in Western Europe, which is obviously going to colour you compared to certain other parts of the world, you're going to recover that cost in what? 5 repairs, 6 repairs, sort of thing.
Yeah,
if you look at it, raw 100% of the money I make on this job goes to paying off the equipment. It's like 6 repairs, kind of thing, I would say.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a case of
I have
if you do 10 repairs ever with the equipment, you've covered the cost of them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of.
I have mixed opinions on this, because it's definitely lots of people use that reasoning. You say, so, oh, it will pay for itself in X number of repairs, which at face value makes absolute sense. However, I also remember the mindset of because don't get me wrong, I'm not flushed for cash at the moment, but I'm doing all right. By doing all right, I mean I've got a big shop. This place costs me £1,000 a month in rent. However, the YouTube and my creative content pays the rent on the shop. That's how it works. And all of my other bills and my wages and stuff like that all gets paid for in the repairs and that kind of thing. So I've got enough that I now have a expensive computer and stuff like that, but I'm not made of money. I'm not living in a mansion. So I'm doing okay now. But however, 5 years ago, I'm living, job to job kind of thing. I'm scraping together the money to pay off the rent at the end of each month, because when you're self-employed doing a job like this, most people, they get paid at the end of the month. So they get a lump sum goes into their account, and then it slowly goes down throughout the month. When you're doing this kind of job, it's the other way around. You're slowly accumulating money through the month, and then it goes down at the end of the month when all the bills go out. So, slowly scraping together money. So when you're in that mindset of just constantly trying to scrape together all the pounds to pay off the rent at the start of every month, you know, when someone says, oh, it'll pay off for itself in X number of repairs, I'm like, bitch, I need that money. You know,
so absolutely. But it's a case of...
it makes sense, but I also understand people who have difficulty shifting into that mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as saying that more of a case of it's not an insurmountable hurdle. It is a worthy investment.
Yes, agreed.
In the sense that it can pay for itself reasonably quickly.
Yeah.
In theory, you could pay for it within a month.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't aim for that. I wouldn't expect that when you're starting out. I'd say, right, I expect this to take 6 months.
Yeah.
I'd expect this to take a year.
Yeah.
But obviously the case of
I think it's
also possible for the volume to pay for it in a month.
Yeah.
Very
especially if you're starting out and you're practicing, say, at home where you don't have business overheads yet. So effectively everything is pure profit. Hello, Pianov, by the way. How's it going? So yeah. By the same token as well, I think the important thing is, which I can say from experience, is that in 99% of cases, every time I've taken the plunge and invested in equipment, I have greatly appreciated that equipment. And that has been like, for example, one of the smartest things I did I think I did it about like, I think it was like in the 3rd year or something like that, was I spent about £200 buying common laptop chargers and hung them on hooks on the wall. So when customers were bringing their stuff in, I did not need to take the customer's charger anymore, because suddenly it reduced shop clutter massively. And every time, the only thing I took from the customer at that point now was just their laptop. No bag, no accessories, no boxes. Bloody hell. Thanks, Chris. I can't see any of the chat now. The chat just went off the top of the screen. So yeah, thanks, Chris. Anyway, yeah. So just buying a set of chargers for the shop was such a valuable investment to me. And yes, just same with other equipment. When I've bought equipment, at the time I've been like, oh, I don't want to spend money, but I have greatly appreciated it afterwards. And that's just included all kinds of things. Yeah. Like again, in the new shop, you know, when I pay my mate to come in and fit all of the lights that we've got in these shops, these lights, like the ceiling lights.
I can't actually remember what it was like before.
Dark.
But I remember coming in once you'd had it done and just going, oh my God, it's so much better.
Yeah.
And just like the fact of it's just gone, oh yeah, the space is like usable now.
Yeah. Like yeah, and again,
it's yellow.
Yeah, and like it costs several £100s to get all the lights done, and you know, for me, I'm just like, several £100 just to change lights. You know, that's not equipment. That's not fun stuff. That's just ceiling lights in a building that I don't even own, that I'm renting, so I don't get to take them. Well, I could take them with me, but am I really going to do that? No. But the point was, it was just they were worth every penny.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the thing. Is just if you're you have to, you've got to find that balancing point, because you don't want to waste money. You don't want to spend money that you don't need to, but it's important to look at something and be like, is this an investment? If it is an investment, then you will appreciate it and it will pay for itself. So yeah, I don't know what point I was trying to make, but at any rate, that's the thing.
Yeah, and I think it's my comment coming from a different perspective is a case of, I'm very much of the opinion that you have to spend money to make money. But it's knowing what is good value to spend it on.
Yeah.
And I think that is the skill.
Yeah.
And that is the skill that you develop over the time of running a business, is learning what ventures and what investments are the sound ones and which ones are just spending. Several
years ago, I had a friend who was they don't do repair; they're just a hobbyist. But they were buying tools, and they said to me sort of, oh, you know, what tools should I buy for a PC repair kit kind of thing? And I was like, I don't know. Well, you want a Phillips number 1, Phillips number 2. You want some micro screwdrivers, so a torque set, a Phillips 00 and a Phillips 0 micro screwdriver kind of thing, etc., etc. And just the sensible things that I think was necessary. The next time I saw him, he had a toolbox filled to the brim with wearer gear that I hadn't told him to get, just the whole shooting match. He had like 3 toolkits in this toolbox kind of thing. all of them with the labels on. You know, he'd showed up. You know, it was like a fisherman showing up with the labels hanging off of all of the hats, kind of thing. You know, I was just like, you know, everything's still with the packing on. And the problem was that toolbox and equipment that must have cost him £400 worth of stuff in there.
Yeah.
And I looked in there and I'm like, you are never going to use half of what's in here. And whereas what I did over the years was I bought stuff as I needed it. And like, for example, only half of my screwdrivers are wearers because those are the ones that I use all day, every day.
Yeah.
The ones that I use once in a blue moon, no, I haven't bought wearers for that because I use them once a month.
Yeah.
They're never going to wear out, you know.
No. I do kind of want to get a couple of wearer Torxes.
Yeah.
Just so I've got nice Torxes in the common size.
Yeah.
But it's also at the same time, I'm like, or I can use the crappy Draper set I've got for the once in every 6 months I use it.
That's it. So
and it's just kind of
so
give a job its worth.
Yeah. So that's the thing is it's good to invest in expensive tools and stuff like that. But also I think sometimes I think that you've got to look at that balance point and be like, am I just spending £400 on a toolbox of stuff that I'm never going to need? But I bought it all because it's all got wearer written on it, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's the cautionary tale I'm trying to portray here.
Absolutely. But it's like, I definitely did buy a wearer P0 and P1, P00.
Because those are the ones that are going to be in your hand all the time.
they're the three that I'm going to use the most often.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I might as well.
Yeah.
And I found them for a decent price. I think I got them for something like £3.99 each or something like that.
Sure thing.
And I was just like, that's
like,
stupid not to at that price.
Because like those 3 screwdrivers, they never actually make it back into the pen pot of screwdrivers on the bench. They're always on the bench because as soon as I put them back in the pot, 30 seconds later, I'll have them back out again. You know? So, yeah. But, yes. Right, I'm going to back read the chat a little bit more. Do you want light or do you want to sit in the dark? Yeah, big time. I mean, when I moved into this premises, the old lights were so bad. They were obviously the lights that had been fitted when the place had been built, or you know, when it had been converted into a shop. And there's
also just so many weird and random lights, and
they've been added to here and there by previous tenants who had been like, oh, we want a bit more light over here and a bit more light here. So there are weird ones in specific locations, and like it used to be a hair salon here, so a lot of the lights are along the wall to illuminate where mirrors and chairs would be, kind of thing. But all of them are just bad fittings with horrible fluorescence in them. And so I was just like, no, disconnect all of those and just, you know, 5,000 Kelvin, 60-watt LED panels, you know, 9 of in each room. And when I first moved in here, I set up my workbench, and even if I wasn't filming, I needed the studio lights on to see what I was doing. I had to switch them on in order to see what I was doing, taking laptops apart, even with the room lights on. Whereas now I only need to turn the studio lights on if I'm actually using the cameras. Yeah. If I'm not filming, then just the ceiling lights are all I need, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Let's see. Right, I'm going to back scroll a little bit. Right, let's see. All right, Chris says, if I'm still selling the Rode Single, you got some questions. Yeah, sure thing. Yes, it is still on sale. I am selling the Rode Wireless Go Solo because this kit is the Wireless Go 2, so the Solo kit is not compatible with this kit, so I'm selling the old one. So yeah, I'll give you a shout, Chris, and we'll talk. Let's Caradog buys a Rolls Royce to drive to work. It'll pay off.
Who drives?
It'll reduce your.
Who drives their own Rolls Royce? Who drives their own Rolls Royce?
Well, you've got to buy a Rolls Royce and a man, then I suppose, you know.
Yes, but you're not allowed to own people anymore.
A man's services, driving services.
Moving on, anyway. Yes. So anyway, microphones.
Yeah.
Quite so.
Oh my God, there goes another one. Thanks, Spud. Fucking hell, they're out in force today, aren't they? Yeah. And I've just lost my place in the chat again because of that. Right, let's see. Okay, scrolling down. Graham should pick a random person and help troubleshoot. Possibly. I don't always see all the chats, though. Is there a troubleshoot session going on that I've missed?
Yeah.
I can see people talking about motion-sensitive stuff or motion-sensitive lighting, but I missed the start of that one. You've had the same tweezers for 25 years. That's impressive.
I do want to have just a room light that's on a motion sensor.
Mm.
Just so if you walk into the room in the middle of the night, there is some light, so you don't walk into stuff and you can just see to go, oh yeah, where is the thing? Oh, it's there, and then walk out again.
I could do with that for something like the storeroom, just so when I walk in the storeroom, just the light comes on and then it goes off 30 seconds after I walk out. You can get that just included in light bulbs now.
Yeah, I just want it set like above the door, pointing at the door, so it only goes off in there. The rest of the time, I want the room lights to be off, because I've got lights for my desk, kind of thing, and I don't need the room light on.
I'm with you, yeah.
So it's kind of, because I'm sorting out the room, eventually maybe when contractors ever get back to me.
Yes.
I still can't believe that I'm 2 months on trying to actually, I've gone, right, I'm sorting this out.
Yeah.
And I still haven't actually got contractors to turn up for the quotes they've given.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why do you not want to get paid?
Yeah. Going back to screwdrivers for a moment, someone asked, what's better, Wera or Weha? I haven't used Weha, but my understanding is that Weha have better handles on them, and Wera have better heads. That's my understanding, and I believe that because my Weras, the heads on them are the best screwdrivers I've ever used. End of discussion. And I haven't used a lot of top-notch quality screwdrivers, but out of all of the screwdrivers I've had, I've gone through lots of budget sets, including Draper and stuff like that. I know Draper isn't a high-end set, but they are a brand name. And the Weras have blown all of them out of the water. And also, I mentioned it last week when we were building the desk, but the iFixit kit I have has more wear and tear on it than my Weras. And the iFixit kit is less than a year old, and the Weras are about 5 or 6 years old. So that tells you a thing or two about them as well. So for me, so I hear that Wehas have better handles on them. And in my experience, the handle doesn't particularly bother me on the Weras. When I first picked up the Weras, I was like, oh, the handle isn't very nice. Because like the iFixit kit have got really nice handles on them, and they do feel really nice. But for me, it's far more important to have a head that doesn't round off and doesn't get dents and grooves in it over time. The handle you get used to. Or hell, if it bothers you that much, you can wrap it in stick tape or something like that. So yeah.
Oh yeah, that's actually a really good idea.
I used to do that on the cheap ones, because on the cheap screwdrivers, the rubber just comes off over time. And my Phillips 00, on a lot of my previous ones, I'd wrapped it in stick tape just because the handle had shredded. So yeah. So Proxon, I've got a Proxon kit as well that Selfman sent in, and the Proxon kit I've got, it's very nice. However, that is a DIY screwdriver set, so it's a big handle thing. It's not. You could build computers with it, so it's suitable for that, but it's not an electronics set for doing electronics repair. So it's difficult to judge it versus the Wera.
It's too big for laptops, phones, etc.
Yeah, so I can't compare it to my Wera craft forms because they're different classes of screwdriver, in my opinion. But the Proxon set that I've got, though, for what it is, it's jolly nice. I like it a lot. It doesn't get used daily because it's too big. However, we used it last week when building the desk, and I was like, we don't have to use these stupid Allen keys they've shipped. I've got a nice big chunky screwdriver. So yeah. So that was a thing, yeah. Right. Jumping into random places in the chat, Danielle just said, power button on your Silverstone Farah R1 case is sticking. Doesn't always pop back out after being pressed. Is it a metal power button or is it plastic? If it's plastic, well, either way, honestly, I would try, on the assumption that it's not going to be easy to actually disassemble the front panel and take the switch apart to clean it, I would actually just squirt a bit of WD-40 in the button and then wipe down the front so it's not all dribbling out kind of thing, and just give it a couple of taps with the power unplugged at the back, and that will probably free it up. I would expect it to be that simple. It's probably just sticking because some grit and dirt has gotten in there and is just jamming it up. So that's what I would probably do. Not something I've had to do because for a long time now, I'm surprised it has a switch that actually actuates because most cases these days just have tactile buttons on them. And I have a love-hate relationship with tactile power buttons. You know, they don't wear out like the switches that have an actual travel action on them do. But at the same time, I miss the days of anti-vandal switches on cases where you press the power button and it had a really nice my God, there's another one. Where they
it's kind of it's like Matthew just installing a actual missile switch. You know, the flick cover, open cover, flick switch, turn on.
Yeah, I still, because, Matthew, can you remember the Corsair case that he runs? It's a carbide something or other.
I don't know. I thought it was a half.
No. It was Bizarro who had the half.
Was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah. One of our friends has got the Corsair. It was featured on the channel a long time ago, but the military style one. It actually had a little flick cover on the power button and stuff like that, and it was very cool. It was very appropriate for him. So, yeah. I'm glad we've got 2 moderators in today because apparently we need them. Thanks a lot, guys, for hanging out. So, yeah. But yes.
It's a case. Spud is obligated due to his promotion.
Yes. This is how I get people to stick around the community now, is I promote them in the community, so now they feel like they're obliged to stick around instead of moving on to another community. So, don't forget, Spud and Chris, you're here forever.
Wow, that went dystopian.
Yeah. I'm obligated to. I'm finally having cider. Yeah, well, I think this is a waffle stream today. I've got this Bose. This buttery biscuit Bose. Sorry, this Bose. Is that why you were mocking me? Because I said Bose instead of Bose.
Yes.
Okay. I have this Bose. The Bose. Here, and I put it on the desk in case we want to start taking something apart, but it occurred to me that we don't have the bench cam, so I don't know if I'm going to start on this today. The bench cam can actually, the cable will just about reach over here, so we could do that.
Get over here.
But I don't know if we're going to today. This might just end up being a video, because I need to start recording video. Yeah, it's it's a version 2, and it's got this cool charging dock. Isn't that cool?
Huh.
Isn't that rad?
That's actually an improvement.
Yeah.
Yes.
I really want one of these, but I don't use a Bluetooth speaker often enough to justify paying £200 for one.
Not bad.
But I think
do what I do. Get someone else to pay for yours.
Yeah. Like, knowing how good the sound from these things is, I would wager that that's probably the best Bluetooth speaker you can buy.
Bose,
assuming you want something portable.
Bose are extremely good at their audio processing options.
Yeah.
Which is the comment that you'll get out of a lot of comparisons for Bose hardware to Sennheiser or Quick. No, I can't think of any other like PA type equipment names right now. No, it's all gone. Never mind.
I was reading chat. So.
All of the differences between those equipment is very much a case of like Bose will sound good in any environment because it's a highly processed sound. Kind of was the comment coming back, whereas the Sennheiser equipment, the Sony equipment, the so on and so forth, will sound very neutral and true to life, but you will then have to set it all up yourself. You will have to do the EQing, you will have to do the speaker delays and all of that stuff.
That makes sense.
Whereas the Bose stuff, you just kind of go,
yeah.
And it's the two.
Yeah. And I would wager that that's probably a good thing because it's the old story of a lot of people, they think they want all of the high-end studio quality stuff and they think they know everything about it, but they probably don't have the first idea how to actually set it up, and they probably should buy something that's pre-done. Like, for example, with me, you know, like, I want high-quality stuff, but I'm fully aware that I'm not a sound engineer. Yeah. So I absolutely want something that is pre-set up. So...
Yeah.
But yeah, someone, UFE says, aren't they like £800? Brand new? I've got no idea. I think they're like £200 second hand on eBay. So
when I
just
looked, they were like 200 quid.
Yeah,
or something like
because
that.
like my mate has got the old version of this that doesn't have the charging cradle. Because the charging cradle is what I think is really cool about this, because you can have it sitting on a shelf, and when you actually want to use it, you can just pick it up and go. But yeah, my mate has the old version of this that doesn't have the charging cradle. He's had it for as long as I've known him, almost.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's had it
Which one is that one?
This is the SoundLink Mini, and I think it's a SoundLink Mini 2 or something like that.
Mini 2 is definitely a product.
Yes, SoundLink Mini 2.
It does not exist on Amazon.
I think it's discontinued.
It is exceedingly discontinued from the look of this.
My mate's got one of these that's got to be 10 years old, and it's still going strong. I saw him using it two weeks ago at the LAN party, and I was like, he's still got that heckin' thing, and it still sounds better than any other Bluetooth speaker I've heard. You know, he had this thing sitting in front of his computer, and it was filling the entire hall with music. It was brilliant, you know, so yeah. Clips do great audio ones too. Yes, this is true.
Yeah.
I wish their name was easier to say.
Clips. Yeah. There is a SoundLink Color 2, which is a Bluetooth wireless speaker, which is like £122 on Amazon right now.
Yeah.
The cheapest option is £105, but
I definitely saw these things on eBay.
So it's like, a case of certainly this sort of range of stuff isn't that expensive.
Yeah.
I don't know. It kind of depends on what you're looking for. I think is ultimately
everything is relative. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this, like, for example, Tony was just like, garbage. But yeah, I mean, obviously, it's still a Bluetooth speaker and it still fits in the palm of your hand. It's not going to be studio quality kind of thing. However, for this class of device, I think this is about as good as it gets. Again, in class, you know, and I think this is the ideal size for a Bluetooth speaker. Because you know, if you're going any bigger than that, you're bringing a boombox with you, and that's kind of a different thing. Something like this is still small enough to lob in a backpack, which is 9 times like the time when I use a Bluetooth speaker is like once a year when I go down the beach with friends, and I just grab my bag and I put a towel in it and I put some sun lotion in it and I throw a Bluetooth speaker in there so we can have some tunes while we sit on the beach. You know. Yeah. So yeah. You're not a fan of the processing because you don't like the sound of it. That's fair. If you don't like the sound, you don't like the sound. That's a reasonable opinion.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the point. Is to a degree, a lot of the it's better, it's worse than is you liking the sound profile that it has.
That makes sense because like some people like different headphones. Some people like headphones that are super bass heavy.
But we can also agree that some people are just wrong.
Yes, I could.
Anyone who says that Beats headphones are high audio quality devices or high build quality devices.
But yeah, build quality I can tell from having seen teardown videos where I was just like, oh really? You know. Also
just the fact of like you pick up the thing and it goes like,
yeah.
Oh no.
That's my experience with Turtle Beaches, man. Every Xbox owner, well, not every, that's a bit of a tarring with the same brush, but so many Xbox owners have been like, oh, you've got to get yourself some Turtle Beaches. Every Turtle Beach headset I've picked up, I've been like, plasticky kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, they got their niche though, man. They've targeted an audience. But yeah, so yeah, I've never actually listened to Beats headphones though, so I don't know. I'm told that they're garbage, but I've never actually heard them, so I don't know.
Yeah, they do not sound. I don't think. Yeah, it's a difficult thing to describe specifically, but I think it was the fact that they were very muddy and imprecise.
Yeah.
And I haven't got a problem with bass-heavy setups for headphones and stuff. I mean, it's clearly a line that works well because Sony has an entire line of headphones that are specifically the extra bass line.
Yeah, I mean, every Sony pair of Sonys that I've ever owned have been very bass heavy, even if not specifically extra bass. Okay. But bass heavy might be a strong word, but you know the bass is there compared to other headphones. You know, they favour it because I think to the layman, if they hear bass, they're like, oh, those are very good because bass equals good. Just because most people are used to tinny headphones, which are not tuned for bass, they just can't do bass. Yeah, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's such a difficult thing to portray with words, and very difficult to do reviews of Because obviously you're trying to...
You have to use a lot of pretty words. It's kind of like when we were doing the cider reviews and I said, oh, it's very bright. And you were like, come again. I was like, yeah, it's bright.
But it's also a case of, it's like describing the quality of microphones. It's virtually impossible because you've no idea if the person on the other end is listening on the speakers that are built into their monitor. Yeah. And then you go, guess what? Doesn't matter what microphone you've got. It sounds like trash.
Yeah. Yep. Profiles can change a lot. Yeah, this happens with audio mixing as well. When I'm listening to people, when I'm watching when I'm watching friends on Twitch, if some of my friends who are Twitch streamers, they often stream during office hours, and so sometimes I'm watching them in the shop while I work, and sometimes I've got them on the workbench, which has got a sound bar on it. Sometimes I've got them on the laptop, which obviously has got biscuit tin speakers in it. And sometimes I'm watching them on the gaming PC, which is hooked into the stereo, which is on a pair of Sony hi-fi speakers. What do you call those? Monitors? No, they're not monitors, just hi-fi speakers. Yeah, if I say hi-fi speakers.
Describe them as hi-fi speakers. I've no idea what they actually are for a specific range, but I would guess they came out of a build your own hi-fi system 30 years ago.
Yes. I didn't pay for them, all right? So
they would probably sound significantly better if you actually had any stereo separation.
Yes, I want to sort that out. That was supposed to be temporary, but we'll move on because no one knows what we're talking about because we're gesturing to something that's off camera now
and has always been off camera.
Yes. Anyway, but the point is, in 3 different places, I get 3 completely different sound profiles, and like for example, so when I'm watching a Twitch streamer. I set the volume to their voice, but in different places, the game volume can be radically different. And so sometimes, and weirdly, the game volume always seems quieter on the hi-fi, which I find very odd, perhaps because it's got more dynamic range. So often I've listened to people on that and I've been like, oh, game volume's a little bit low. And they've been like, really? It looks normal on my end. And the rest of the chat is just like, it sounds fine. I'm like, I'll shut up now. So
it's part of the reason why I never particularly comment.
I do, because the thing is, sometimes
just because I'm kind of because of that.
Yeah, people can always just shoot it down. As a streamer, and I think most streamers would agree with me, having someone in chat say, by the way, the game's a bit quiet or a bit loud, or you're a bit quiet or you're a bit loud, or you're clipping. Sometimes having someone say that is so helpful because most people won't say a thing and you might not realise there's a problem.
I'll only say when I can't hear them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If they're actually muted, sure. Yeah.
Or a case of if they're quiet relative to the other stuff.
Yeah.
But if the other stuff seems quiet, I'll just be like, that's probably how you want it set up.
Yeah.
But
Was that another one?
Yeah. God, there's been like 2 or 3.
Yeah, that's like the 4th, I think.
In that conversation, there were
God.
2.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. But no, it's why I don't particularly comment as long as I can hear the streamer.
Yeah,
because I'm like, that's the important part to a degree.
Yeah,
everything else is secondary.
Yeah. Chris is just like, oh, chat 24/7 lies. To an extent, a lot of the chat doesn't know what good sounds like, and that sounds really harsh when I say it in those words. But you understand what I mean. But it's often a good guide. If you say to the chat, "How does things sound?" you gauge the responses. If you
always look at it as a percentage.
Yeah, literally, you're looking at a percent. Like same here. Earlier on today, when we said, what's stereo or mono, we're looking at the percentage. Most people preferred stereo, but also I was looking at the actual comments people were saying. People were saying the stereo is good, but too aggressive kind of thing. I'm like, okay, that's the answer I'm looking for.
Yeah.
You gauge the response.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also it's important just to have your own measurements up here. Like, for example, for audio, I'll say, are we loud enough? But I'm also looking at the VU meter on the stream PC over there, and I'm going, yeah, we're touching the middle of the yellows. That tells me that I should be loud enough. If someone is saying you're too quiet, I'm going to say, no, you need to turn your speakers up. Yeah. Whereas if someone says you guys are really quiet, and I go, oh, we're not hitting yellow. Yes, we are quiet. You're correct.
Oh, look, we are. Oh, I'm clipping. Let's not do that.
So yeah.
Apparently, I need to learn to modulate for this microphone again.
Yeah, well, you keep flip-flopping. Caradog was telling me off stream how, because Caradog uses a dynamic microphone at home, he's used to just using his inside voice all the time.
Well, not even that. I'm very much used to speaking like this and using a slightly lower and softer register because that's specifically the setup I've gone for.
Yeah.
And with that, I am just nudging yellow.
Yeah.
But then I think I need to speak like this, and I'm like, oh no, wait, I'm clipping. Hold on.
Yes.
Where is the middle ground?
Yeah.
I don't have a middle ground.
I'm the polar opposite, and I'm used to speaking to a condenser microphone all the time. So I'm just like,
which
hello,
is also the other side of the room.
Yeah. So I'm just used to shouting all the time. So yeah.
Oh dear.
But yeah.
Yeah. I think it's also to a degree kind of knowing whether you have a good setup or not for judging whether someone's levels are good.
Mm.
Because like I would maintain that I probably have a slightly above average setup.
Mm.
Because I actually have half decent neutral headphones. I have a decent audio interface.
Mm.
I have decent broadband. I'm not stuck on, the 240p stream.
The problem I have at the moment is most of the time when I hear you, it's because we're playing Phasmo. And obviously Phasmo mangles everything deliberately.
Also, just somehow mangles me even more.
Yeah. So the problem is you've got this really expensive setup at home and you always sound like trash because we're playing Phasmo, So
it's fine, you're not my target audience.
Well then. Yeah.
Yeah. I need to go through and find and actually research, what is the quote unquote standards for setting stuff up and testing the setup.
Yeah.
So you can go, oh yes, this actually is correctly set up.
How do you calibrate?
Yeah. How do you set your expectations?
Yeah.
And how do you go this is the X, Y, and Z test. This is what everyone uses. This is how you know that you're actually set up and stuff like that. So other people who calibrate to that will then match, because obviously sound is hard to calibrate for someone else, the other side of the country or the world. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I was good. Judge this man's new RAM.
Yes. I entirely misread it and thought that they have bought 4x64 gigs.
Yeah.
I was just like...
But why, though? Yeah.
But, sorry? 64 gig DIMMs?
Yeah.
At those timings? Specifically located in your house?
Yeah.
But yes. I've no idea if that's a good price or not.
Yeah.
To be honest. However, I'm just like, those are some aggressive timings.
Those are aggressive timings, so yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to presume and make a wild assumption that that's a 3200 kit.
Yeah, at C14 it must be.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be 3400.
It
wouldn't be 3400.
Well, it might be.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't expect it to be much harder than that.
Adam, what speed is your RAM?
Yes.
So yeah.
But however, yes,
Normally sells for 800. Oh yeah, it's because it's Trident Z Royal as well. Yeah, you're paying for Royal there, or Royale. I don't know. Yeah.
Depends. Is it a burger?
Yeah, true. So yeah, 3600. Oh yeah, well there you go.
Oh boy,
C14 3600. That's that's rapid.
That's tasty.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Approved. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. Chris made a sale today. He was upgrading from a Xenon 3450. Right. Very well. 660 Ti. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair enough. Jim says everything Apple is overpriced. We were having was it last week we were talking about? Oh no, it was during
Wednesday.
The week. Yeah, that's right. Because Carol was in during the week helping me reorganize the workshop. We were talking about Apple and sort of discussing things, and yeah, because
all brought on by that.
Oh yeah, the MacBook. Yeah, we were talking about the Mac. I'm going to get it just so we can put it on the desk.
MacBook.
Yeah. Not just a MacBook, the MacBook Retina.
The MacBook called the MacBook.
Yes.
Which is daring and bold enough to have a single port.
Yeah. It's brave. Yeah, what was it? Yeah. Was it brave is the term for it?
I think it was daring design.
Yeah. Yeah,
or
just
something.
A single Type-C port. It's got a headphone jack. It's got that going for it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but yeah, this is the MacBook Retina, and I've got one of these that's in for repair. Someone paid for the 500 gig upgrade on a MacBook Retina. for those of you who don't know, that's hilariously a terrible idea. Because that means they probably paid about £1,500, £1,600 for a netbook.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we were talking about Apple and just how, they are hecking overpriced. But here's the thing. Really good speakers, really good screen. If you value a really good screen and really good speakers, Apple's the only game in town, man.
Yeah.
Discuss, because we were talking about the iMac as well. We were talking about, because the iMac has got a problem where everyone is just like, who is it for? Because it's not really for professionals. Because it does, but at the same time, it's priced outside of all but the most richest of students. So it's just like, and it's like, well, is that their target audience then? Just rich students?
Maybe.
But the thing is, the M1 iMac is a hecking rip-off, but it's got a bloody good screen on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about a couple of their products. And like this, I really like this. Yeah, as a physical item, ignoring anything other than its physicality.
Forget the specs, forget the price.
The chassis, the form factor, the weight of it, the feel it has when you touch it and so on. They have 100% nailed that. Every part of it. And the fact that it's such a small laptop, you can still just do that.
Yeah, just about, yeah.
And just stuff like that. They have absolutely nailed so much of the feel of the device. Yep. And the screen on it is fabulous.
And of course,
the problem is
Apple Glass trackpad. Apple trackpads are the best trackpads. End of discussion.
Several people will now disagree with you.
They're wrong.
I don't know. Have you used the 2019 and newer XPS trackpads?
Admittedly not.
Because apparently they are damn close or better.
Yeah.
Or the HP had a special one, I think.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of manufacturers now that are basically the same, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm just so
it's taken them 10 years to get to the glass trackpad, but they've had 10 years to do it. So about bloody time they made something that's as good. Because as you know, I use a lot of trackpads because 90% of my repair work is laptops.
Yeah.
And I use the trackpads on all of them. I've touched a lot of pads.
And oh my god,
they're all awful.
So many of them are so awful.
Yeah.
What was the one that was here? Oh, that one that was on here, and I just kind of touched it and just went,
Yeah, that was the Asus, yeah.
There was an actual expulsion of disgust.
Don't buy Asus consumer laptops. The Asus gaming laptops, don't know them that well. That we can have a discussion about that. They're probably much better. Asus consumer laptops, so like the X series, don't ever buy them. They're awful. Yeah. I'd rather have a HP. I would rather have a HP. Because literally, HPs are better, and at least you can bloody find parts for them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The Zephyrus line is apparently exceedingly good.
Yeah.
But they're also quite expensive. They're also effectively gaming laptops, which is what you said.
Yeah. Oh, Chris is getting upset with our voices again. I'm sorry.
What did our ears ever do to you?
Are we still too hot?
Exist. Yeah. Listen.
We've got too much dynamic range. I think you might need to explain to me how to set up a compressor at some point.
I'll also need to learn how to use a microphone.
Yeah, because that's true. Yeah, because I've tried to set up a compressor before. Because the issue is if I turn down, we've got quite a lot of gain on these at the moment. And if I pull down the gain, then our normal speaking voices become too quiet. So what we actually need is a compressor just to compress the dynamic range a little bit. However, I've tried to add in a compressor on OBS before, and I was like, I have no idea what these sliders mean. So,
yes, I have spent a reasonable amount of time playing around with a compressor on the Go XLR, just being like, yes, settings, ratios.
Numbers.
Just being, But yeah.
Yeah. Let's see.
But yeah. Also, I think legitimately, if I actually just move this and just be like,
yeah,
that will also
try that out.
Kind of help.
Yeah,
a little bit. But yeah,
HP Spectres are nice. Yeah, they're nice laptops. reposting it half a ferret lower.
Because of course, we can't use actual units. We've got to use fingers in ferrets.
Yes. Yeah, HP Spectres are nice. They're still HP laptops, and they have HP problems, like single antenna Wi-Fi cards and stuff like that. But again, form factor and build is nice on them. But yeah, the problem is there aren't any laptops that I like. This is the thing, 'cause like when you spend a lot of time saying I don't like this, it begs the very legitimate question: fine, what do you like then? And I'm like, I don't know. I like old Latitudes like this because they're £300, so you don't care about their shortcomings, you know. But also, this has got half-inch thick bezels on it, you know.
But by the same token, the £140 stream, you should go, yeah, this laptop's okay. This is £140.
True. Yeah. I'm putting a point on a curve of cost versus what you get, kind of thing, and old Dell Latitude. So, like for reference, this is a Latitude 54. This is a Latitude 5480. So from the E series, and you can buy these reconditioned. They're called renewed, which is just code for refurbished. But yeah, you can buy these renewed on Amazon for like £300 kind of thing. So probably somewhere between $300 and $400. And this has got a 6th gen i5 in it. It has a NVMe SSD in it, so I can put in whatever SSD I want. And it has 2 DDR3 memory slots on it, so I can load it up with however much RAM I want. It's got a 1080p IPS screen on it, so it has a not awful screen. The speakers on it are trash, but the keyboard is good. And I'm like, for £300, I think it's virtually impossible to find something that can actually top that for bang for buck. You know, obviously, if you want a gaming laptop, you're going to have to look somewhere else. But I don't like gaming laptops because there is no value in gaming laptops. It's all about making the best of a bad situation, in my opinion. You know, in my opinion, gaming laptops are always a heavy compromise. So, you know, you can find ones that are a compromise that you're willing to put up with, but there will be a compromise there, I think. So that's the thing. It's just I don't like many laptops, and that's the thing. Is just if I had £2,000 to spend on a laptop, honestly, I don't know what I'd buy. I'd probably buy an XPS if I'm honest.
Yeah, I saw an XPS, whatever the current model they were trying to sell, in Curry's the other week, and just kind of went, yeah, that's a pretty laptop. Like,
yeah. I was really tempted to buy an XPS when I bought this laptop. I'm glad I didn't because I couldn't justify it. I was like, all this laptop does is sit on the desk and is used for lookup. So I'm Googling things and taking down customer details. That's all this laptop does. And once in a blue moon, if I go on holiday or I go away for a weekend, I lob it in a bag and take it with me because it's my only laptop. Well, it's my only good laptop. I've got a couple of others kicking around, but it's the one that I would take with me.
And a MacBook with a non-functioning screen.
Yeah, I need to get a functioning screen on that just so it's not trash anymore. However, the screens for that MacBook
are more than the MacBook.
£350, £400. Yeah. You could, like a brand new screen for an M1 MacBook Air is £235 on eBay right now, which is not bad. Yeah. You know, I do screen replacements for MacBook Air M1s for £300, and I got tasty profit on that, and that's a reasonable price. I mean, obviously it's expensive, but it's also a laptop that costs £1,100. So you know, and I think Apple charge like £600. So it's fairly reasonable as far as I'm concerned.
I presume it's just because the screens aren't made and haven't been made for a long time.
Yeah, I think that's the answer.
How old's that actual model?
It's a 2014, so it's 8 years.
The parts won't have been made for 6 years.
Yeah, so I think I need to keep my eyes out for a non-runner. I need to get a broken one for spares repairs that has a good screen on it. I think that's my best bet. Pick something up for like £200 as spares repairs. Yeah. Take the screen off of it and keep the rest of it as a breaker laptop.
Yeah.
So yeah. Worst laptops on the market, anything Acer. I haven't seen any new Acers in a while, if I'm honest. I don't hate Acer because the build quality on them is pretty trash. They're cheap plasticky laptops, but they're also, parts for them are everywhere. They're like Ford cars. Parts are everywhere and they're cheap. Everyone's got parts for Acer laptops. eBay is full of Acer parts. So I don't hate them because, yeah, they're plasticky, but if they break, you just fix it, So,
to a degree, that almost excuses it not being that great if the parts are readily available.
That's it. So as such, you're paying for a fairly decent spec and a fairly decent form factor. You just don't get the build quality. Like in the triangle of price, performance, build quality, you've got price and performance, and you sacrifice build quality. But that doesn't really matter if you can buy It doesn't matter if the bottom case hinge mounts break because a new bottom case is £20 on eBay.
Yeah.
Whereas for HP, when a HP screen breaks, the top lid mounts break, and it cost me £100 to buy one on AliExpress for a sheet of plastic.
That's mad to me.
Yeah, like not all HPs, obviously, but as an example of routinely. I see HP laptops where you look up the parts and you're like, oh my God, come on, is there anything else I can do with this? So yeah. Aces have BIOS issues often. Yeah, I'm not saying they don't break, but what doesn't?
It's always that percentage thing. And obviously, a case of to a degree, you can't particularly comment on the reliability of a specific model until you've seen a couple of thousand.
Yeah.
Because percentages.
Yeah. Median 14-inch metal chassis, Ryzen 5. That sounds not awful. I mean, I think if Floorlamp was here, he would be frothing at the mouth at the mention of Median because Floorlamp is German and Median is really common over in Germany. I think because they're a German brand, if my memory serves me.
I think so. I think it depends on where you buy them because I think it's a brand that gets applied to hardware as opposed to a brand that makes hardware.
They're a system integrator, I think.
I see. Okay, yeah. I thought they were like.
Don't know. I think they're a mix. I think they make some of their stuff.
Oh, I see.
I think they're one of these like advanced system integrators where they probably don't design the motherboard, but they do make their own chassis to put the motherboard in. Maybe I don't know. I might be talking
apparently
about
it's a German brand.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was.
Yeah. However, Einwald Schlamp, he despises.
Stop calling him that. Just call him
Floorlamp. Okay,
He has changed his name specifically for you.
I'm sorry.
Because you keep calling him naughty things.
I've tried to pronounce it correctly. Yeah.
Yes.
How is it pronounced then? You tell me.
I'm not getting down that rabbit hole.
Very well then. You may not accuse me then.
I can.
Wild lamp.
Because I have made the wise decision to not engage in something I know I will lose.
Very well. I'll just say Wild Lamp, as Arnold has just pointed out then. Anyway, so Wild Lamp despises Medians. That's the moral of the story. And Wild Lamp is obviously one of the best techs I've seen. So I can't.
He's also working in that market.
Yeah, and he works in Germany. So I take his opinion seriously. However, if it's got a metal chassis, it's going to be pretty strong, is where I was going with this. I don't like the brand, but if it's made of metal, it's going to be pretty good, in terms of build quality because it's metal. The worst offence it can really commit at that point is just being a bit heavy, and it's up to you whether that's a problem or not. So yeah, used to be a German reseller. They were bought by Lenovo. Oh, interesting. Today I learned. Yeah, and Lenovo. For a long time with Lenovo, I said the hardware is good, just their software is horrendous. But that's not a problem because any brand new laptop you buy, the first thing you should do is erase it and reinstall Windows anyway.
Yeah, basically.
So I don't care if the software setup is bad. Like even when I'm buying laptops for customers, usually I buy Dell because the worst crime that Dell can commit is blandness, and that's not the end of the world, really.
Their laptops are certainly fine.
Yeah, Dell are like the Volkswagen of laptops. They're just boring. That's the worst thing they can commit.
I don't know. Dieselgate was a pretty big problem.
True. Yeah. However, at any rate, So, however, even with Dell laptops, the software setup on Dell laptops is pretty good. They don't install a lot of garbage. You probably don't need to reformat them, but I do anyway. I buy one in, I open the box, reinstall Windows, then I put it back in the box and sell it to the customer. So I don't care if the software setup is bad on Lenovo's. However, recently, a lot of Lenovo's I've seen, just again, the build quality has just been less. It's been with Lenovo. They've got two modes. They've got the consumer grade stuff, which feels very plasticky and not very good, and a lot of people say is just not particularly reliable. And then you've got ThinkPads and the ThinkPad range, which is vastly superior in build quality, but every time I take them apart, I'm like, these are so complicated to disassemble and repair.
Who designed this and why?
Yeah, so it's like the old story. Everyone's always just like, "Oh, ThinkPads are the best laptops in the world," kind of thing. They're so repairable. I'm like, clearly you've never taken apart a ThinkPad.
I guess also a case of to a degree though.
Move the phone somewhere else.
Repairable doesn't mean easy to repair. It just means that it can be repaired.
Yeah,
in the sense that the parts are actually available. The thing actually has screws, as opposed to being glued and melted and heat staked and all of the other. So, yeah,
that's fair. Your Legion came with McAfee and loads of rubbish. Yeah, absolutely. I assume you reformatted it, Night Fusion.
And then there was, also the thing about, was it Superfish?
Yeah, was that Lenovo's malware install?
Yeah, where they literally changed your root certificates to give.
I was aware of this at the time. I just didn't know the details of it. Changing root certificates. Oh yeah, I remember that now. Yeah. I didn't encounter it, but I remember hearing of it and being like, they did what? What were they thinking?
Yeah. Well, it was because stuff was blocking adverts or something. So they changed that, so then they could inject the adverts differently, and then they could get paid because they could guarantee that the adverts would get shown and stuff. And it was just like, But obviously the fact of then it meant that every single laptop could be man-in-the-middled.
Yeah.
Because they included the root certificate, but also the
private key?
Yeah, the private key for the certificates. Like on the laptops.
Yeah.
So someone just bought
a laptop and they now had the private key for that certificate. Yeah.
So they could make their own certificates.
Yeah.
And then you would see a nice secure connection with the SSLs, but actually you were being man in the middle, and it was just like
Yeah. Security on the IBMs was top level. Yeah, this is true. When you get into a lot of business laptops, probably like the modern ThinkPads, I would imagine, are no different. And again, HP EliteBooks and ProBooks and stuff like that, the security on them is very good. And that's partly what you're paying for with the professional ones, which doesn't necessarily make the laptop good or bad. It just means that it includes a certain feature. Because, if you're in a corporate environment and security is actually important, then that is going to matter. For consumers, security is not important. Your laptop has shit on it. Don't deceive you. Don't delude yourself.
But it's also a case of the physical security thing.
Yeah. No one cares about your cat pictures. However, if you're in a business and you actually have sensitive information that you're storing, then actually securing the laptop both physically and software-wise,
it's the physical security thing that is kind of the relevant part on that, because obviously the software setup you can do on any device, basically.
Yeah. That much being said, Tony has just said ThinkPad supervisor passwords are not hard to bypass. Supervisor password that's part of it, but it's, it depends on what angles you're protecting from, because a supervisor password is there to prevent the current holder of the laptop, like the member of staff, from tinkering with the setup. And the staff member is not going to hack that laptop, kind of thing. That's not really the concern. It's a combination of that plus BitLocker, etc., etc. I mean, to be honest, I don't know if any of them are. I think Apple T2 and the M1 replacement is the only one that is currently, this is not feasibly bypassable. But for example, HP ProBook or EliteBook, I can't remember which stuff it is, has a dual BIOS system that it is bypassable, but it's very good at trying to stop you from bypassing it. I was bypassing one quite a few months ago now, and Wild Lamp and Lead Farmer alike were both helping me out with that one. And you had to do it was the same as any other one, but you had to do everything in a very, very specific order. And if you got anything slightly wrong, it would just be like, oh, I don't like this, and it would reload its backup BIOS and reinstate the password again, and you had to start again. And I was like, this is bypassable, but it's very good at trying to protect itself. There was very good effort gone into that to protect itself. So obviously, again, it's all about threat profiles, isn't it? You know, it's
that's the thing that Telltale will shout at anyone. It's a case of
threat profile.
Yes, but how does the VPN help with your threat profile?
Yes.
Oh, but it makes me anonymous. I'm like, no.
Lobs his can of beer at you, you know.
Oh dear. I can just see that though. Him just walking up to someone and actually slapping them. Just being like, stop! You're stupid.
This video is sponsored by NordVPN.
This sponsor spot has been approved by my friend.
When it comes to what do you think about devices like YubiKeys, George likes the YubiKeys, doesn't he? Teltac.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
He was using a YubiKey for a while, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. YubiKeys are pretty good. I mean, obviously, it's all as a type of two-factor, and two-factor anything is good.
Is it FIDO?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Basically, any two-factor.
It's a FIDO key.
Yeah, any two-factor that is not SMS two-factor is a good thing. SMS two-factor is better than no two-factor, but it should not be relied upon because SMS spoofing is ridiculously easy if you start looking into it.
Yeah.
Or it's significantly easier than spoofing any other kind of two-factor. But
it's also to a degree, I feel easier to phish someone for.
Once you've got two-factor and stuff like that, your actual attack vectors are going to be phishing.
Yeah, but I mean text messages. I feel like text messages are easy to phish someone for.
Yeah.
Because going into your text messages doesn't feel like a security thing.
Yeah.
It feels like going into your messages to talk to your friends kind of thing.
Yeah. One of the things I don't like about Apple's implementation is that Apple two-factor is when you need to do a two-factor, you're on an Apple phone, it will curtain the screen. So the screen will darken, it will come up with a prompt saying, do you want to allow this device? And obviously everyone's natural reaction to an unskippable prompt like UAC is to be like, yes, okay, whatever, I don't care, go away, please. Now you still need to get the code, so it's fine because it will then come up with the code that the person needs. But I really dislike the way that Apple's 2FA implementation curtains the screen. Whereas any other device, it will be a notification or a message, or you have to open your Authenticator app or something like that. Which means that when something pops up, you're just like, why do I have a notification for this? Or you might not even notice it unless you're specifically looking for it. So, don't know, just a thought. So, yeah. SMS isn't secure. Yes, exactly that.
It's not secure, but it's better than nothing.
Again, better than nothing, yeah.
We're also working on the basis that every single user is reusing every single one of their passwords. Therefore, simply getting them to turn on SMS two-factor is a giant win.
Yeah, and for the record, that is very much a thing. Most users are recycling passwords.
I would say that less than 1% of people use random passwords.
Yeah. The vast majority of people have got maybe 2 or 3 passwords, if you're lucky, that they're using across all things.
Yeah.
And they can't even remember those. So yeah, just the number of people who come in who tell, like when I'm fixing, I despise fixing people's email issues. Because every time I say, cool, right, do you know the password to your email account? Because the first thing I'm going to do is remove it and then put it on the device again, because that fixes most email problems. And they go, I don't have a password. Okay, so how do you stop other people from reading your emails? So what's your email password? So you don't know your email password. Okay, right. So we need to reset your email password. So yes.
You're also just bad with this.
I'm bad with this because I'm sick and tired of having the same problems with customers that I had 10 years ago.
Yes, but also it's a case of they're different people.
Yeah.
When it's the same person over and over again, I understand. When it's different people, it's a case of...
I've run out of patience for this job. And I know that's a bad thing.
Yes.
I know I need to sort that out, but that's you know, that's not an excuse, that's an explanation. I'm explaining my disposition, not trying to excuse my disposition. I have run out of patience.
Yes.
So yeah. Graham, that's your job, bro. I know. But my God. It's so tiring having people just, and then there's the other people that take out the other people that take out the broadband bill that has scribbles, an A4 page of scribbled out passwords and notes on the back of it, with half of them crossed out and the other half with a box around them and some of them underlined. And you go, so what's your password? And they're like, it's here. I'm like, I'm not deciphering this. I don't know what this means. This is hieroglyphics, literally. I'm going to backread chat for a bit. One of my thoughts on the fall of Netflix. I don't think Netflix has fallen. I think Netflix has just hit a cap because...
There is a limit.
Are we going to talk about this? Yeah.
There is a limit to...
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna kind of pivot it slightly to just a conversation of there is a limit to the number of customers you can have.
Yeah.
I should have breathed before I started that sentence.
We've just come out of a pandemic where streaming services et al. Saw record rates of growth because everyone was stuck indoors with nothing to do, so everyone signed up for streaming services. Obviously, when we come out of that pandemic, a lot of people are going to be like, I don't actually use this anymore, and either unsubscribe, or there's going to be fewer people subscribing, and therefore we're going to see a leveling off of growth.
Also,
this was entirely predictable, and despite what so many companies or shareholders seem to believe, you cannot sustain growth infinitely. There are a finite number of people. There is a finite size to a market.
Yeah.
You can't have infinite growth. It can't be done. So when Netflix were talking about this, I don't think it's the fall of Netflix at all. It's just they've hit the top of the market and it's leveled off for a bit.
Yeah.
You know.
It's also the case that we've hit a period where people have way less money now.
Yeah. And likewise as well.
Therefore, they have to cancel the things that don't provide them with heat and food.
Yeah.
Netflix doesn't provide you with a thing that you have to survive.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's going to get cancelled.
Yeah.
I'd imagine Xbox is going to see larger Xbox Live is going to see greater cancellations this period. PlayStation, whatever it's called, is going to see more cancellations this period.
Yeah.
Amazon Prime will have seen more cancellations this period. Every service like that will see significant cancellations because people don't have the money for it.
Yeah. Something capitalism bad. Because at the end of the day, this is a symptom of late-stage capitalism where all the big companies believe there is infinite growth. You know, AAA game studios that keep saying, oh, we've got to keep seeing growth in game markets. We have to keep making more and more and more money.
Yeah.
Because it's never enough. And as soon as something levels out, even when it's leveling out at billions in profit, but it leveled out, I'm like, but they're making billions. But it leveled out. It's not growing. Therefore, it's failing. No, they're making billions. That looks pretty good to me. It's never enough.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my opinion of the Netflix situation.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like, as Chris says, with the Netflix share value, is a case of how ridiculous it is that their shares have lost a third of their value.
Over this, yeah.
Over.
That's a massive overreaction, and that's stupid.
Well, yeah, they've lost a third of their value over something that had to have happened.
Yeah. At
some point.
Exactly that. So this is I blame this on the system because it's also the shareholders that are just that are panicking because they believed there would be infinite growth there and stuff like that, or they wanted there to be infinite growth, you know. But I don't know. I don't invest in anything, so you know. Likewise, you know, you've got to be in it to win it, and I'm not in anything, so I'm not going to win anything. But by the same token, I look at it, and one of the reasons why I'm not in it is because I'm just like, I can't be bothered to play that game, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. DNA Electronics says, good time to buy some shares now then. I'm inclined to agree because I bet money they'll bounce back. Maybe, you know, we don't know if they'll go back to its original value, but you can bet your ass it's going to go back up because Netflix aren't failing. They're not going anywhere. You know, I
don't know. It depends because an awful lot of people I've seen socially have said that they're cancelling because Netflix are putting up their price. As well, it's a case of I could afford to pay for this, but I'm cancelling because Netflix has put up the price.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. And the combination, the adverts and putting up their price.
I'm cancelling because they're adding adverts. I'm cancelling because I can't share my password anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so you can't effectively pirate their thing, therefore you're cancelling. Yeah. And I'm just kind of like,
it's difficult to, obviously we're talking, you know, so like my mate says, or several of my friends have said, is always difficult to gauge because we don't know how much of a niche thing. For example, you know, we look at all of the gamers out there and the enthusiast PC builders as this big, huge community that's actually what, you know, less than 1% of computer owners kind of thing. You know, it's just like sometimes we think that sometimes we think that lots of people are saying X when actually that's a tiny percentage that is completely irrelevant. So,
but it's also a case of to use that as a barometer of the feel of the populace.
Yeah. But at any rate, though, what was I going to say about that? Yeah. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's going down, but I do think that it does seem like there have been a lot of knock-on things. The sudden the reporting of a lack of growth on its own, I don't think is a big deal and everyone is overreacting to. But Netflix saying that they're putting up their price and potentially introducing adverts, that this seems to be a very bad time to do that while everyone's confidence has suddenly been shaken. But also the other thing is a lot of people overreacting before they actually know what this change looks like. Like, it's a case of, okay, well, does this mean that they're going to offer a cheaper ad-free subscription, or they're going to add in a higher paid subscription and put ads onto everyone who's paying the current amount? You know, I don't know how much Netflix actually costs because I don't have it. But let's say
I've no idea what the changes are. I think it currently costs £15 in the UK, and the proposed change was to make it £30.
£15 and £30. Fucking hell.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, I wouldn't be paying
this is like third-hand information I saw in one place. I haven't even looked at the pricing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just kind of a case of that's what I think it looked like it was doing, and I'm just kind of like,
yeah.
That's
and also the account sharing. Yeah, I think they might be clamping down on account sharing. I mean, I suppose they probably know better than anyone whether that's actually a problem or not. Or presumably they've looked at that and they've gauged that if they clamped down on that, they would get like at least a percentage of the people who have now been locked out would say, fine, I'll pay for it, you know. But it's always hard to tell because, like, for example, you know, my sister pays for Disney Plus because for her family. And when she got Disney Plus, she was just like, hey, do you want to be a user on our Disney Plus account? And there's like 8 users on that account. And I don't know how much she's paying for it, but you know, and Disney just don't care. But
that's also a different setup because, like, for Netflix, there is an option that you can buy that will allow you to have like 6 sign-ins on different devices. But I think what they're clamping down on is where you have a single sign-in, but you're on like 9 devices, which are actually 9 different people. Yeah. And you basically just go, oh, you can't watch something tonight, I watch something.
Yeah.
Which to me seems like such a tiny percentage of people.
Yeah, I suspect that's a small percentage, and also I think changing it so you can sign in from all different geographical locations, even when it's blatantly obvious your account sharing. Like one of the account locations is in another country or something like that. But as long as 2 people aren't watching at the same time, it's okay. That seems reasonable to me. Kind of like Steam game sharing, where you can share your games with your friends, but only one person can play at a time. That seems reasonable to me. Because at the end of the day, I'm not watching Netflix 24/7. So if I was paying for it, I'd be like, sure, you can use my Netflix account. However, if I want to watch something, I'm going to start watching and cut you off. That would be those would be my terms. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know. I haven't specifically looked at the tiers and the perks and stuff like that. But it's just a case of I know that there are certainly options for device sharing for concurrent streams and things like that. Okay. It's like with Sky and and you can have various different people watching at different times in different places, but they have a limit on the number of people at a time. But you can have like 5 concurrent streams or 10 concurrent streams.
Yeah. So according to chat, Netflix Ultra went from 14 quid to 16 quid. That's for 4K, and the HD option was $9.99 and went to $10.99.
Okay.
That seems like such a pointless price increase. I assume they consider that it was worth the negative PR to get another quid out of everyone. But if they've got 20 million subscribers, a quid out of each one of those is probably a considerable amount of money. So
yes, it's 20 million.
Yes, but on the flip side, though, again, I dislike all of this because I think there's too many goddamn streaming services. And I think I've made this rant before, but like when ages back, I wanted to watch the first John Wick movie. And I went through 3 different streaming services that I had access to, and none of them had John Wick. And I'm like, I just want to watch John Wick, man. And I ended up going to a pirate stream because I think I went through Netflix, I went through Amazon Prime, and I went through something else that I had access to, and it wasn't on any of those. And it was probably on, I don't know who owns the rights to John Wick. I don't know. It was probably on Paramount or HBO or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. But I went through 3 different services that I have legitimate access to, and it wasn't on any of those. And I'm like, what? I need 4 services now to just to watch John Wick? You know, no. I'm just going to open an incognito window and type in John Wick free stream, and I went through about 3 different results, and then I found a free stream of John Wick that was in reasonable quality, and I'm just like, so yeah, I can't be asked.
Yeah, It's still the case of the answer to piracy isn't DRM. The answer to piracy isn't any of that. It's convenience.
Provide a better service.
It's convenience.
Yeah.
If I can go Netflix, film, watch, and that's the sequence, I will pay money for that.
Streaming services were supposed to break the shackles of cable TV packages where you had bundles of different channels of content, and now we've landed up full circle in exactly the same place where people now buy TVs or streaming devices that have bundles of individual services, or you end up paying for all of those bundles of individual services anyway. And because everyone's got each different thing, you end up like, even if like you could say, oh, you can pick and choose which ones you get. It's like, yeah, but you're still going to end up needing 4 or 5 of them. And at 10 quid a pop, that's going to be 50 quid a month. And it's just like, bloody hell, we have come full circle, and it's dreadful, and I hate it.
Yeah, it's because everyone obviously wants their own slice.
Yeah,
but also a case of kind of the thing of having a monopoly isn't a good thing. But
yeah, this is
it's
why
a whole bunch of different.
This is why exclusivity is bad. They just need to have royalty agreements. Apparently John Wick is on Sky Go. So if Sky got the rights to John Wick, now I'm waffling here. Let's say there needs to be regulation that says that Sky must license their content to all people. So if I, a person with Netflix, want to watch John Wick, I'll watch it on Netflix, and then Netflix have to pay 10p to Sky because I watched John Wick, and they have to pay a 10p license for that single viewing of the film. Or £1 or whatever, I don't know. There needs to be. We need to stop with the exclusivity, so I can pay for a service that I like, and they then pay royalties for whatever content they do not have the license for. But perhaps that doesn't work. I'm not an economist. I don't know. But either way, the current situation is ridiculous, and they need to fix it. Or I'm just going to carry on pirating stuff. Because I'm not paying 50 quid a month.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
I took the other option of just going, I find all of his media a bit shit anyway. I'm just not going to watch it.
This is true. One of the reasons why I don't pay for anything is because there's nothing that I really want to watch, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, Disney Plus is pretty damn good. Disney Plus has got a lot on it that I like.
Yeah, I'm just not interested in any of the stuff
that's understandable. I have to admit, if my sister suddenly said, "Oh, I can't give you my Disney Plus login anymore because it's that we can't share it or whatever," I'd probably get Disney Plus and I'd pay for it off and on because I've watched a lot on that Disney Plus account. So yeah, that's one that I would actually watch. But that's the big Disney, and they own everything, which I think is probably why they've got a pretty good streaming service, because Disney own everyone now, which itself is of questionable goodness. But yeah,
see, to a degree, it surprises me that Apple didn't fix this with Apple TV.
Yeah.
Given they already owned a whole bunch of studios, they're a $1 trillion company.
Apple TV has always been astonishingly bad, especially in the UK, or rather outside of the US.
It amazes me
that in the US it was bad.
Apple didn't solve this problem just by going, I'm buying you, I'm buying you, I'm buying you, I'm buying you.
You know what I think the answer to that was? They were too early. They were right at the start of streaming media. The Apple TV came out just as streaming media was just before streaming media became mainstream. And they were just a little bit too soon, I think. Or perhaps the bigger issue was that you had to buy an Apple device to use it, whereas Netflix came out and you could just plug your laptop in. And then Sky came out and everyone already had a Skybox or was accustomed to getting a Skybox.
Yeah.
And by extension, BT. You know, if you didn't have Sky or you didn't have Virgin, you had BT. You know, in the UK anyway. So you know, so I think that's one of the reasons. I think Apple were just a little bit too soon and were riding on the you will buy a magical device that gives you access to all this content. And like, yeah, in the UK, I set up an Apple TV at someone's house because back when it was relevant, I was still doing call outs. And I remember setting it up and having a look through it and being like, there's nothing here, man. You know, there was just no content there. I was like, huh. And then my mate got one not long after that. My mate got an Apple TV and said, "Oh yeah, we got an Apple TV. There's nothing on it." You know, we use it for streaming content off of our laptops. We use it as a stream interface.
Yeah.
But as a content provider, it was terrible.
Yeah. But I think it's a case that its party piece is Apple Play, AirPlay, AirDrop, Apple Drop,
AirPlay, probably.
I don't know.
AirPlay, I think. Yeah.
Apple Wireless playing with Apple-friendly devices.
Yes.
It's walled garden thing of that. Very slick, very good.
Yeah.
And I think that was in effect Apple TV's party piece. Was providing that for any HDMI input capable device.
The integration.
However, it's a case of great, but what do I play on that?
Yeah.
There was nothing to play on it specifically. And it just surprises me that Apple were too early to something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an odd thing because normally Apple are very good at sitting on the fence and waiting for someone to nail something and then doing exactly the same thing as that and being like, we've brought you the best kind of thing.
Yeah, and very much just being also a case of, guess what? We've bought £1 billion worth of advertising, so every other company doing this literally can't advertise.
Yes.
Kind of things, you know.
Yeah.
Just a whole bunch of stuff like that. So it is very surprising that they would be first to do something.
Oh my God, people are talking about John Wick, and apparently John Wick 1 was on Sky, John Wick 2 is on Netflix and Amazon, and John Wick 3 is going to be on Virgin Media. So if you want to watch the whole trilogy, you need a different service for each one.
Do you know what solves this problem?
Piracy.
Physical media.
You know what?
Buying Blu-rays. Buying the physical disc from Amazon, having it turn up at your door.
The next day as well.
Buying it. And then watching it. Even.
Yeah. You know what?
That's stupid.
I have been thinking a lot about physical media lately, and because I've still got a Blu-ray player. I've got bits in my hair because Look, sorry.
Sorry, it was just the fact you just kind of went, my hair!
Yeah, I went to ram my fingers through my hair and I was like, I've got bits in my hair. We were lifting ceiling tiles earlier on to run a cable across the ceiling. And I'm like, Anyway, sorry, I just... anyway, where was I? I've been thinking about physical media. I've got a Blu-ray player, like, for a TV kind of thing in the storeroom. And I've been wanting to hook it up to something again so I can watch, because I do have Blu-rays. And I've been thinking, you know what would be nice if I just bought Blu-rays and I could just put a disc in and play it.
Yeah.
And
it will be in better quality than the streaming.
Yeah, exactly that. And likewise, I come to the same conclusion about music as well, is that I've been wanting to reinstate my old iTunes library. I've probably converted to something other than iTunes because...
Yes.
Well, iTunes has become a lot lighter weight than it used to be, so I might still use iTunes because it is significantly lighter than it used to be. However, either way, I wanted to go back to just having an MP3 library, as I'll call it, where instead of having to be like, oh my God, because one of the case in point, I think I did find it, but for example, the other day I was listening to Smashing Pumpkins. And I was going through a big old Smashing Pumpkins binge, and I wanted to listen to one of their B-sides called Saturnine, and I was searching YouTube for the original version of Saturnine, and all I could find was a remix of it. And I'm like, this song is on their greatest hits disc 2, and I can't find it.
But that also, if it's not on YouTube, that might be legitimately because they've copyright struck every single video and it's been taken down.
Possibly that. Either way, it was difficult to find the original. Yeah. And I'm like, and I'm just like, what if I just had my MP3 library like the old days so I could just listen to the CD that I own, I mean,
the solution to that was Google Play Music. And then Google killed it.
Yes. That's right. And likewise, a while back, I was listening to... I was listening to I can't remember which one. It was one of the Dream Theater albums, and I was listening to the album all the way through. And one of the songs in the album playlist, this was on Google Music, the modern Google Music, so YouTube Music, I guess. Listening through to the album, one of them, the song starts playing, and it's a different vocalist. I'm like, what the fuck? And I picked it up, and it was just like featuring so and so, and I'm like, this isn't the album version. I wanted to listen to this album. This is not the album version. Why is it different? And I'm like, and that's the issue. All of the streaming services, they mess with your music because they're trying to store as fewer copies of it and stuff like that. And I'm like, what would be nice is if I just had an MP3 library again. So I am considering going back to physical media.
I had that with someone, an artist, a while ago. I was listening through an album and went, the track listing's different. Just randomly went, this track shouldn't be here. This is the wrong track order. But it was the correct track order according to the streaming service. But I was like, no, it's not. This is not the UK album version.
Yeah.
Why are you giving me the Japanese album version? Yeah. Sort of thing. I looked at
There's usually an explanation for it.
This is the Japanese version. But I have this in my library as a saved playlist. Why have you changed my playlist?
Yeah.
And that was the point where I just went, excuse me? Now you are effectively gaslighting me.
Yeah. Like this.
Excuse me?
This kind of stuff doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's infuriating. Yeah. That's the problem.
What else it happened with. War of the Worlds.
Okay.
Right? There's two main versions of War of the Worlds. There's War of the Worlds. There's War of the Worlds, The New Generation.
Okay.
One of my playlists randomly got changed to The New Generation. Even though it was the Old Generation playlist.
Yeah.
They just changed all the tracks on it.
Yeah. Because they think that's what you were trying to listen to or something.
Even though I went, my library, this album, it still had the old album art.
Yeah.
I was just like, no. Both of them were still on the platform. Both of them were on the platform. I just had to resave the old album to my library for it to have not changed it. I was just like...
Yeah. So, so I agree with you. The solution to all this streaming service nonsense is to go back to physical media.
And I'm just like,
I think that's a good idea.
How is physical media the solution to the problem in 2022?
Yeah, and it's because you can't own streaming media. That's the problem. You can't own streaming media. And like one of my friends, he has it's KO again. He runs a Plex setup. I think it's a Plex setup or a modified version thereof. And when I was at Land Raiders,
is that the shared one?
Yeah, and all like half of his friend circle have access to it, and it's now known as just KO Flicks, because every time Good Movies comes out, he finds a really good copy of it and puts it on that. And so just like half his friend circle they're not subscribed to any streaming services. They just use KO Flicks because all the good stuff is there in really high quality, you know. And I think it's all stored on a JBOD array of like 20 scrappy hard drives, you know.
Oh really? Oh, he's actually hosting it himself.
Yeah.
Fair enough. No, because for a long time he was doing it all on a VPS.
Okay, yeah.
Clearly it has grown to too much of a capacity.
Yeah. It's last I heard, it's on a JBOD array because a couple of people were saying to him, "Oh, dude, you should get that on a proper NAS system or or a RAID 5 or something like that." And he's like, "No one pays me for this, so it's on a JBOD." You know, so
it's fine. Just expense it. It's a work project. Yeah. I need it for deployments.
Well,
for my images.
I'm very tempted to just send him a DM and say, "My dude, can you give me a login for this, and I'll give you a tenner a month," because I know that it, or probably £5 a month for how much I'd actually use it, but I'd actually say I will pay you for access to it,
Yeah.
But so something along those lines, because again, he's doing the same thing. I mean, sure,
I need to set up Plex.
Yeah,
and actually start doing that.
Exactly that. It's not a streaming service, but he's acquiring the media in digital or physical format and storing it digitally, and then hosting it on a streaming device himself. So he is in control of the media.
That's the point of Plex, effectively.
Yeah. That's the thing is, I don't think the answer is for us to go back to using physical discs, but the point is to go back to using a copy of the media that you control. No DRM, no streaming service. And that's the direction I want to go back to.
So daft. But
yeah, it shouldn't be necessary, but that's where we're at. And like at the end of the day, like one of the reasons why we stopped doing it is like back in the day, our music libraries were too big to fit on stuff. My music library was like 40 gigabytes or something back in the day of MP3s. And you can fit that on anything. But my phone is 120 gigs, and that's considered basic these days. So these days, I could put my entire music library on my phone and it not matter. I wouldn't even need a streaming service then, because my entire library would be on my phone.
I would contend that you'd probably want to re-rip everything, just because the advancements in codecs.
Yeah.
In the past 40 years.
I talked to John about that, because John has a very, 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 very big music library that he has ripped in recent history in FLAC, using the best optical drive that money can buy, that has the lowest error rate at genuine lossless and all the rest of it. And he's collected all the music he can find, because he had a bee in his bonnet, which I think is quite justified. He said, because a lot of our parents have this problem that if they want to get, my dad had this issue where he went through a phase where he was like, I want to listen to a load of music that I listened to as a kid, and all he could find these days was cover versions of albums. He couldn't find the original albums anymore, only covers. Or they were only on vinyl, and obviously converting vinyl in a clean manner. If you wanted a CD copy, so it was actually in decent quality, I went there. If you wanted something that was in decent quality, the only thing that was available was weird cover versions, which he was like, this isn't the original artist. And John's dad found the same thing. And so John had this thing where he was just like, I don't want the same thing to happen to me and my son, where at one point, my son is like, what music did you listen to when you were a kid, Dad? And he goes, well, I used to listen to these guys, but I can't show that to you because it doesn't exist anymore. And it's not on any streaming services because no one has a license to it. and no one has any physical media because the analog stuff all died. So he rips everything. He's got like all of the Now albums. Now that's what I call music. He's got all of those. And I'm like,
cool.
yeah, and I'm like, those have got trash on them. And he's like, yeah, but that was popular music in our childhood. So when someone asks me what was the popular music when you were a kid, I'm like, he's like,
he can go,
he can
this,
say this
and
was what it was.
Start playing it.
Yeah, that's it. And he's preserving it all, you know. So, you know, obviously it takes hundreds of gigs, but so that's the thing is if I actually want to do this, well, yeah, these days.
Oh no, my storage.
But, yeah. So
my 18 terabyte hard drives.
Yeah, what I'll actually do is I'll say to John, can I come over to your house with my laptop and copy half your music library? And I can tell you what, he's going to heckin' have Smashing Pumpkins' Rotten Apple's greatest hits, including Judas O, the unreleased B-side CD, in FLAC. And it'll have the original version of Saturnine on it, not this weird heckin' cover.
I went through that for
Oh my god, there's another one.
I went through that for a while with music videos for certain things and stuff, and just like trying to collect as many things and sources as I could on them, and like trying to collate stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh god. Sleepwalker said, do you remember when the new U2 album came out and every Apple device had it force-fed to them? Yeah, I remember that.
I think the problem with that, the reason why people took such offense is it was U2. If it'd actually been a good band, people wouldn't have complained.
My favourite gag about U2 is Bill Bailey's bit on U2. Where
I don't know what that is.
So you know Bill Bailey, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah. He did a bit on U2 where he says, here's how to make any U2 song ever. And he starts a song with a really basic bitch chord, and he's like da 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 da, and he's like, and now what you do is you add in an echo, so and he taps an effects pedal and puts it in an echo, so now it's going da 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 da, and then he says you start doing this, and he goes hello kind of thing, like Bono does kind of thing, and suddenly it sounds like a U2 song, and it's such a good bit. Just search for Bill Bailey U2. It's fantastic. Let's see. You know a guy who's got about 50,000 CDs all burned? Yeah. Sometimes that's the thing. I think preservation is important these days. I'm not the hero who's going to do it, but I'm glad there are people out there who are doing it, if I'm honest. So, yeah.
Preservation sits in this really weird place for me because I enjoy the concept of a lack of permanence, but at the same time, I understand the fact that vast amounts of the human existence needs to be preserved. But it's then a case of also how much of it and whose.
Yeah.
Because you start getting to a point of what history am I writing?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
And it can be a very philosophical thing.
I was about to say this one goes deep, and part of me is just like, this is a very interesting discussion, and the other part of me is just like, hell no, I'm not touching this right now.
Yeah. But also the case of just because you've got the data, just because you have this thing preserved, is it useful?
Yeah. There are some people who are preserving stuff, and I'm just like, that's very noble of you, but no one cares.
But no, not even that, because I'm not saying that you or I get to choose what is useful now, because it's only this year's. It's only last year's. You can only say whether it's useful in 150 years' time.
Yes, that's true.
Because, you know, to take what feels like an asinine example today, an Instagram feed filled with all of the photos of the meals someone ate for like 4 years of their life, today feels pointless.
Yeah.
But you go, oh, I've got a photo. I've got photos of every single meal someone ate from 1780. Yeah. You suddenly go, oh, that's of historical significance.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we don't get to decide what is useful about today, about yesterday, about 5 weeks ago. But what I mean is the data useful? Can someone who isn't you understand it?
Yeah.
Can someone else come into this in 100 years' time and glean something from it? Can they learn from this storage? Or will they have to interpret it? Will they have to guess?
Yeah.
Because as soon as they do, to a degree, your storage of it was pointless. Because you haven't actually told them the answer. They're having to guess at an answer. They're having to infer a solution.
Yeah.
So it's kind of all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very interesting. Yeah. And in a more direct thing, Mr. Guru just pointed out that he preserves arcade games and about the importance of emulation. Certainly, game preservation is something that is very important in the here and now, because that's the loss of historical games is a very interesting one, because it's something that's happening inside of our lifetimes.
Yeah, I mean,
in such a short space of time, preservation of games has become a really big problem within a matter of decades, which seems to be absurd.
Well, it's like the prime example is the case of how do you introduce someone new to a game that only launched on Wii?
Yeah.
Say.
Yeah.
There is no legal way of obtaining that.
So many discontinued games and delisted games now that are difficult or impossible to play that only came out 10 years ago, and it's just like, that's mind-blowing that something that has only been around for 10 years is now considered to be rare.
But also a case of you go even a step further. Right, so I have the game. I have the code for the game. Can I play it? No. Why not? Because the server that did the DRM doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So I have preserved the code, but guess what I can't do? I can't play it. I can't show it to anyone.
Yeah.
Because the server that ran it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Say. It's like games for Windows Live games.
The
only way to play those games now is to have an illegal copy of them.
Yeah.
To have a cracked version.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if I've got the original disc, I can't play that game.
Yeah. And
because I need a patch. But what if someone stops hosting that patch?
Yeah, that's just it. My old copy of Fallout 3 is a Games for Windows Live, and it got patched, but I doubt heckin' who owns Fallout? Bethesda. I'll be impressed if Bethesda is still hosting that patch. I probably have to go to third-party websites to find it now. So yeah, that's a thing.
So it's
grrr. Let's see. The chat has moved on to talk about memory modules, so let's move back onto tech for a bit. This is kind of tech. It's important things, people. But yeah.
And then I guess, sorry to
go ahead.
Where does it stop with physical stuff like computers? Like, say you narrow it down to what we will refer to as x86 computers, and that's it, nothing else. Do we need to preserve that hardware? Purely just as for the sake of the hardware itself, not the games that will only run on that period appropriate hardware.
Yeah.
Just that hardware. Does that hardware need preserving? Because that was cutting edge at the time. That was where, quote, humanity was going and stuff like that. Does that need preserving?
Yeah.
And if that version of it needs preserving, do I also need to preserve the version that's in blue? Do I need to preserve the version that's in silver? Do I also need to take the version that didn't have the upgraded
doodads? Yeah.
I
think
and obviously that's going to a degree of being incredibly anal, but is it a case of how and where do we draw the line?
Yeah, well, that's just it, because like you said, it's not up to us. That's the interesting thing, because, for example, I can say my opinion, and my opinion is, like Mr. Guru said, emulators are incredibly important, because emulators negate the need to have the original hardware, because the original hardware, it's not difficult to preserve the specs and the specs of the hardware. So, we knew what it had, so we can recreate something that is a near enough recreation of it. And in my opinion, it's the art, not the medium, that's important. So we don't need to preserve the console, but the games per se. We just need to know we just need to know the specs of the console. And likewise, when it comes to color, we can just preserve the fact that there was a version of it that was available in blue or something like that. But also, I don't know how much you need to reverse engineer. Like, if you have an emulator for a Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, can you look at that emulator? If it's an open source emulator, does that contain all the information required to recreate a Mega Drive or a Genesis, because presumably they reverse engineered the console in order to make the emulator. I assume you have to reverse engineer a console to make an emulator for it. So is that what they did? You know,
I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know about that.
I think we're getting on to the limits of our knowledge there, which means we can't really form any conclusions. But I think these are interesting questions.
Yeah, but I guess then my comment on that is: do you preserve it in the original state? Are you looking to preserve the game as it was played on the original hardware?
Yeah.
Is that what you're preserving, or are you simply preserving a version of the game?
Yeah.
Because they're two different things.
Yeah.
Because, like, say, GoldenEye on the N64, if it's on original hardware, that's running at like 12 to 15 FPS.
Yeah.
With the slowdown and everything that's in there.
Yeah.
But if I preserve the game and run it in an emulator and run that on some computer in 10 years' time, it'll run at 30 FPS, locked every single time, not a problem. And that's what it was designed to do.
People won't know what the original experience was like.
Yeah, but are we preserving just the game because we need to preserve games? Or are we preserving the experience that the game gave on the hardware at the time? Because then you get into the point of, well, now I need to preserve crappy CRTs. Not just the good ones, I need the crappy ones, the most sold one, the one that the majority of people would have experienced this on at the time. So it's kind of a case of you always add more layers and more stuff and more things. So it's kind of, you have to draw a line somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to know what is correct, what is right.
Yeah.
Because as I said, to a degree, we don't get to decide because we're living it.
Yeah, we don't know what people of the future will actually value.
And we also don't know what will change or be relevant.
Yeah, and what we think is easily obtainable will one day not be easily obtainable, and what we wished we had preserved, which we didn't think needed to be preserved because you could get one anywhere.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like
Nintendo Wii's. You know, hell, you can buy Nintendo. You know, there's a Nintendo Wii down the back of everyone's sofa. One day it might be a rare console.
Yeah.
It's not today. You know, you can probably buy them for a tenner on eBay. Yeah. But one day the Wii, a working Nintendo Wii, might be a rare console.
Yeah. But also possibly a case of will we get to the point where simply having a list of specifications will be sufficient because we can FPGA everything, you know, or some new paradigm in computing.
Yeah, and that's it.
We can literally just go, here is a perfect replica of that on modern hardware, and it will have all of the slowdown, it will have all of the weird glitches and hardware bugs that existed in the original hardware, which were then exploited to make games work in a specific fashion.
Yeah.
Like, it's why emulation is so hard on consoles before, like, the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One generation, because they were so hacky.
Yeah.
Because they weren't known instruction sets like x86s and stuff like that. You know, it's like kind of, there's an excellent interview with the people who made Crash Bandicoot, and them saying about how they did stuff that Sony said was not possible on the hardware to then make stuff possible on the hardware by combining certain instructions, by throwing instructions in certain orders, by addressing certain memory spaces, by deleting the operating system from RAM.
Yes.
So they could get an extra megabyte.
Yeah.
And things like that. Whereas that's hard to emulate because you need to know the game is specifically doing that, but also know how the hardware didn't fail when doing that, and how they knew it didn't fail and all of that stuff. So
fascinating. Yeah. However, it's a bloody rabbit hole, I think, is the issue there. Yes. Moving on.
Yes. I feel like that is best.
Yes. Moving on. Let's see. So let's do a couple of tech questions. So, let's see. How does one find the XMP settings for a memory kit? Well, to a certain extent, BIOS will tell you a lot of it, because when you turn on XMP in BIOS, the settings that it loads up will be the settings for that memory kit. The XMP settings are not stored in the BIOS. They're stored on the memory kit. The memory kit will tell the BIOS what its XMP profile is.
Most XMP profiles are primary timings only.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
some of them might have some secondary timings in,
Yeah.
So it's a case of if you're kind of looking for secondary or tertiary timings in XMP, you won't find them because they're not there in the majority of circumstances.
Yeah.
What you will have is those secondary and tertiary timings set in the BIOS for that memory kit, assuming it's one on the QVL.
Oh, really? Do they have QVL stuff in the BIOS then?
Yeah.
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 Oh, okay.
Which is why you can have the same memory kit perform differently on two different motherboards, depending on whether it's on the QVL or not, because it will be secondary and tertiary timing settings.
Okay.
And some BIOSes for some motherboards in the QVLs will have tighter secondary and tertiary timings set by the BIOS than the auto would generate for them.
Fair enough.
Because they've been tested and thus QVL'd.
I thought it was all in the memory, and the QVL was just purely whether it had been tested on that board or not. So whether it was guaranteed to work on that board. But yeah, didn't know there was actually some data stored as in the QVL.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's certainly, as far as I understand it, based off of kind of A/B testing I've seen between motherboards for literally the same RAM stick in one machine. Yeah. What secondary timings and tertiary timings does it load every time? Right, this stick is now on the QVL for this board. Oh look, it's loaded different, much tighter timings, and gives an actual performance benefit.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So
yeah. Michael Katgaman, might be Michael. I'm going with Mikhail. Sorry, I'm terrible. The best CPU and cheap for Windows 11. Right now, my favorite cheap CPU, 12100F.
Yeah.
The i3 12100F. It's savage, and it's like £120. So that's probably $120 or something like that over in the US.
It might have even hit £100 in the UK.
Yeah. The i3 12100F is savage. Now, don't get me wrong. In multi-threading, a Ryzen will smash it. But for gaming performance and desktop performance, it's heckin' savage, man. It's a little ripper, so highly recommended. It's difficult to beat it, just for point and squirt performance, because you can drop that into a cheap ass motherboard and it'll storm stuff. You can also put it into a Z690 motherboard and later on swap it out for an i7 if you want a expansion headroom.
God, it's less than £100.
It's less than £100. Yeah,
£94.
£94. So yeah, you could probably
from
find it
Aria, PC Tech Next Day, Amazon, Box,
yeah,
CCL.
So you could probably find it for $100 or just over $100 US.
Mad.
So yeah, 12100F. It's savage. That's your cheap CPU these days. There's probably
with a DDR4 board.
Yeah, with the DDR4 board. Yeah. Is there a 12th gen Pentium out yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Yeah. The 12th gen Pentium is probably cheaper, and if you just need a internet box, then that will also be fine. However, you know, how cheap are you going to go? It's diminishing returns when you're going cheap. There comes a time when it's a case of it's worth spending another £10 to get the i3.
I would contend that
considering the i3 is also a really good gaming CPU. You know?
I would contend that if you can't go to the budget of the i3, you should be looking secondhand.
Yeah,
because you'll probably end up with something better than the Pentium or the Celeron.
That's a reasonable comment to make. Yeah, at that point, yeah, because that's
because you possibly
the case.
Pick up an entire PC that's like a 7th gen i3.
Yeah,
for like $200 or $300.
It's the same with laptops. If you can't, like a laptop that's worth buying today is about £400 or so. So probably about $400, because dollars to pounds usually ends up being about the same, allowing for the fact that stuff is cheaper in the US or sold without tax, etc., etc. And if you can't afford $400 for a laptop, instead of buying a Celeron laptop for $300, you should buy a Dell Latitude for $300 secondhand that's going to have a 6th gen i5 in it instead of a grotty Pentium, and you're going to end up with more for your money.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, and it's like the 12100F in the US is $108.
Yeah. Chris says
$108 plus an $80 motherboard plus a $40 RAM kit.
Yeah,
is going to give you a really good value machine. And it's the case of, obviously, if you wanted to, in the future you could go from the i3 to the i5 or an i7.
Yeah.
Once, they're a couple of generations old.
Yeah. Chris says he uses the 10105F for a budget. For the purposes of this conversation, I'm going to assume that we're talking brand new current generation. You might be able to save a couple of quid here and there if you look at the previous generations. But also, again, considering how cheap the 12100F is, I'll be surprised, if the 10105. I'll be surprised if the 10105F is worth it.
It's probably worth it because motherboard pricing.
That's true. Yeah,
so you can probably pick up a 10100F compatible motherboard for $40 or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, the processor will be like $5 more. I think the 10105F, whatever the hell it is like $5 more, but the motherboards might be $30 cheaper because they're obviously 2 generations old.
Yeah.
So I think on balance, if you're going grinding the price as low as physically possible, yes, that. If you're kind of looking at it from the perspective of something that you think you'll have more budget for in a year, in 2 years' time, it would be better, I think, to get the 12th gen stuff.
Yeah.
Just because it's 2 years newer than the 10th gen.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's fair. Sleepwalker says, any news on the Young Lads build video? I am working on it. I haven't worked on it this week just because this week has been a bit hectic. So it got delayed again. However, I am working on it. It's just a bit of a complicated edit because the mangled audio, that I'm having to do a lot of doing a bit of editing, coming back and recording some voiceover or a talking headpiece, and then trying to fit that into the video. It's standard issue video editing stuff, but it's way outside my normal workflow, which means it's getting done very slowly because it doesn't fit into my normal workflow, which I have optimized for per se. So yeah, it's on the way though. It's not forgotten. That's the important part. It's getting done. Let's see. If you can't afford something good, stop buying junk food and expensive coffee from a cafe for a few months. Maybe.
That infers that you're doing that in the first place.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
A lot of people literally don't have the money in the first place, and they already aren't doing that.
That's the avocado toast argument. So yeah, it depends. Let's see. The 10105F is sub £70 as an always price. Motherboards for 40 or 50 quid. Yeah, that's not bad. My issue there again is the fact that obviously it's an upgrade dead end. So again, it swings and roundabouts. It depends where you want to put your money. You can save 20 or 30 pounds by building with that. But then if you spend another 30 pounds, you get the expansion headroom of 12th gen, which can go from the i3 all the way up to the current flagships. So yeah, it depends at that point, and that is going to be a decision for again whether you're budgeting for future proofing.
Yeah, and I guess also
future proofing is a very dangerous term, but it's something certain people may or may not consider that valuable.
It's also just a case of the 30% IPC increase.
Yeah,
it's that's worth something.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's worth it. It also
it's
depends
a case
though,
of that would be that I wouldn't want to go older. I wouldn't want to go worse than the current gen's i3.
Yeah.
But then obviously going to the previous gen's i5.
Yeah. Chris has also pointed out that I'm talking about future proofing and expansion, but any motherboards that can actually handle an i7 go anywhere in the range of 50 quid. I think the answer to that will be no. So in which case, absolutely. Yeah. In order to do that expansion, I'm talking about a 12100F and a Z690 motherboard. And a Z690 motherboard is gonna run you £150 or so. Yeah. So yeah, that does change things. So if you bought a 12100F with a competitively priced motherboard, it's not going to have any expansion headroom. So in which case, it actually makes no difference which generation you're buying. Only the performance matters.
Yeah.
So to that extent, that's true.
Yeah.
So
I would say from my perspective, purely if I were selling them, I would rather buy and sell the 12th gen one now because it's the current one, which means that if it dies now, the warranty's not the issue, because obviously the warranty will be 2 years if it's sold as new by someone to me.
Yeah.
But it means that if in 3 years' time someone comes to me and goes, "Oh, the motherboard's died," the motherboard is only 3 years old, not 5 years old. It's only 2 generations old when they come to me and stuff like that. So it means it will be slightly easier to find motherboards on eBay, on Amazon, what have you. And
at that point, we get into the realms of what kind of builder are you? If you're building for yourself, are you when you're building personally just because you want to build a new computer for yourself, I often recommend spending more than you intended to, because that will probably get you something significantly better than what you budgeted for. Most people tend to under budget. And I usually say spend more than you think you need to, because you'll probably end up with something better. This is obviously a very broad statement, but you get the idea. If you are someone like me, I'm running a high street shop. I want to sell high brand computers where I'm like, I only sell current generation hardware. Everything is brand new, very shiny, with warranties. You can bring it back here for service and all the rest of it. So I don't like selling secondhand stuff unless I've got no choice. I don't like selling old generation stuff unless I don't really have a choice. I do sell it on occasion, but when I sell it, I'm selling it as refurbished kind of thing. But I would much rather, if I'm buying something, refurbished stuff is things that have come into my possession that I then repackage and resell. But if I'm actually going out to buy a computer and build it and sell it, I want brand new current generation parts, because I want to be a respectable, shiny boutique computer shop. Whether or not I achieve that is another discussion.
But also just
that's what I'm targeting.
A convenience factor for both the end purchaser and yourself. Because if they buy something, well, it's like the person who came in on Tuesday who bought a MacBook in 2015, but it was actually an early 2012 model.
Yeah.
Or a late 2011 model.
Yeah, that's terrible, man.
They bought a laptop that was 3 years old or 3.5 years old.
And they thought it was new.
And they thought it was current.
Yeah.
Whether they were told that or not is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Their perception
sold.
And their understanding was that it was something.
Yeah.
And even if you explain it to someone, you're explaining it to someone who probably doesn't know about this stuff.
And doesn't understand
and won't know what the difference is. So to a degree, you're the one who needs to go, I'm selling you something secondhand, effectively.
Yeah.
I'm selling you something that is refurbished, even though it's brand new in box.
Yeah.
Or selling it as new old stock. You have to be so clear and not explain it in the sense of, oh yeah, this is the 3-year-old model, but I'm selling it as new. But a case of, this is new old stock. It is old.
Yeah.
But it is brand new in box.
Because it's not the first time I've heard that story either. Yeah. I've had, and for context, a lady called up and said, I'm coming in with my MacBook that's running very slowly. And we say to her on the phone, okay, how old is it? And she goes, oh, it's 2015. I'm like, okay, so it's a MacBook Pro Retina. That's what I'm expecting. It already has an SSD. It already has at least 8 gigs of RAM.
Yeah.
And it's running slowly. There could be a fault with this. When she showed up, it was a MacBook Pro unibody, a 2012 version. So that immediately means probably 4 gigs of RAM and a mechanical hard drive. Yeah. That's a completely different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
That's completely different. And so at that point, I'm like, all right, more memory and an SSD, problem solved.
Yeah.
But the problem is, at that point, she didn't actually have a 2015 laptop. She bought it in 2015, but that's not actually what she had. What she actually had was a 2012 laptop. Even though she bought it in 2015, it was actually a decade old because it was new old stock.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it hadn't been used for the first couple of years of its life and it had just sat on a shelf. The technology was a decade old.
Yeah.
So therein lies the issue, and that happens reasonably often. So that's the importance of selling new and current stuff if you're a high street shop, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, finally, the last example I was going to give is if you're Chris, who is a system builder and selling on marketplaces and are targeting budget systems.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fair representation of what you do, Chris. And in which case, that's another different use case. Yeah. Warranty is kind of less important there because while you are obligated to warranty your stuff, you're probably not interacting with any of your customers ever again, is my guess.
Maybe, but also a case of if you're selling something to someone and going, this is cheap, but we are building this to get down to a price kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a different service.
Different conversation. It's a different service. And possibly the person expects stuff to cost more later, I feel, because of that initial thing of being the case of, well, we're having to buy something that's slightly old. We're having to buy something that is the cheap option. And if it does fail, I need to buy a more expensive option, or I need to buy a different option, or parts might be hard to come across because it was the cheap option. So I feel like that's slightly more expected. But when you're trying to sell something as custom, as boutique, as more expensive, having that conversation down the road might be more difficult, but also a case of it's a lower percentage of the initial purchase price, or a higher monetary value is attributed to each percentage point of price kind of thing. So having that expensive late repair might seem less bad because the person goes, oh yeah, I spent £1,500 on it new, spending £400 on it now to fix it.
It's also a perception of what people are expecting. When someone walks into a high street shop which is selling expensive computers on the high street, they're expecting to get an expensive high brand product kind of thing. That I think that's the perception of what people are expecting when they come into a shop that is selling at effectively high street prices. Although that much being said, I think my PC prices are quite competitive versus the likes of PC World and so on. Or no, sorry, my gaming PCs are competitively priced versus the likes of PC Specialist, Cyberpower, et al. So yeah. So yeah, very good, Jerry. Sleepwalker has asked a couple of times, have I ever tried reballing chips at all? No, I have no interest in doing that. It's a mad lad thing. I know why some people practice it for mad lad repairs on very specific things, but it's not an area that I have any interest in getting into at this point, because I think it's very, very niche times when it's actually a viable option. So yeah, because I was in one of Paul Daniels' streams where he was practicing reballing MacBook Pro CPUs, which was an LGA 1800 array or something bonkers like that, and he was doing it one ball at a time, and I'm like, I've no interest in doing repairs that require that kind of work. Basically, there's
one by one is a bit much.
Yeah. Now, that's not to say that I think Paul is wasting his time. That's not, the thing is, there are two different types of technician, or rather, there are different areas you can be in. There's a question of, are you pushing the boundaries and exploring the limits of what can be done for the sake of research, in which case time investment is a non-issue, because it's a case of the time investment is irrelevant. I want to discover whether this is possible. So when someone says, can this device be fixed, no matter the cost, I can say, yes, it's going to cost you thousands because I have to reball this CPU, but I can make it work again. There is value in that. Me, I do servicing. I fit SSDs and I do some board repair. And I'm doing that to make money. Now, I'm trying to teach people repair as well, but the bottom line is I'm working and I'm aiming at a different level of repair. And at that point, while I am interested to know what can be done, and I am interested in expanding my skill set, but I'm way below that level of work. And I don't have any particular interest in getting to that level of work, because I'm like, from my perspective, there are easier ways to make money. So, yeah. No, that's all right. I'm not offended by the question or anything. It's just, yeah, it's an interesting thing. You expect you'll need the template to reballing the CPU. Yeah, stencils and stuff like that are a very viable option for this kind of thing. And they're available for some things. They can be quite expensive for other things. But yeah, it's I think it's questionable as to when it's actually necessary. So, and a lot of people are reballing and reflowing stuff where reballing and reflowing is not what is going to help you. But now we get into the discussion of heat gunning GPUs and stuff like that, which we won't go into.
Which is neither reflowing nor reballing, but simply cooking something.
Quite so. Yeah. So yeah. Let's see. Can you get non-alcoholic cider? You can. In the US, cider is not alcoholic, and hard cider is alcoholic. But yes. So yeah. Most people call regular apple cider as being non-alcoholic, but in the UK, when you say cider, it's inferred to be alcoholic, whereas the rest of the world considers that to be hard cider. So yeah. Yeah. Yes. Also, Chris has also just considered other things. You know, on a 1K plus PC, you'd go the extra mile and things like that. Absolutely. I'm not saying that you only build low end stuff. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, horses for courses and such like.
It's the whole comment of, you know, the effort commensurate with the remuneration.
Yes. Also, Wayne just said you can get decaffeinated coffee. So yes, you can get alcohol-free alcohol. Fun fact was someone said to me the other day, which cooks my brain for a moment. They said decaffeinated coffee is the #1 source of caffeine, and I was like, what? What they actually meant is caffeinated anything else, caffeine pills, Pro Plus, anything that has added caffeine. They get that from decaffeinated coffee. Yep. They take the caffeine out of the coffee and they put it in the thing. So decaffeinated coffee is the #1 source of caffeine is in fact a correct statement. Yes. And that made me chuckle for a moment. So yeah. Apple cider is about £200 a can. What? Where are you looking? I don't know. Old Moot cherries and berries is 0% in the UK. Is it? Yeah, I didn't know Old Moot had a alcohol-free version. Doesn't surprise me. Old Moot is really nice.
I'm also pretty certain that no product can be sold as alcohol-free. I think it has to be sold as low alcohol.
Interesting, because of trace amounts, I assume.
Because technically having trace amounts, because having 0.0000001% still contains alcohol.
Yeah, and if you have a lethal allergy to alcohol, low alcohol is still alcohol.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's comments like that, but it's a case that also low alcohol beer can has the same selling regulations as alcohol beer.
Oh, apple cider being Apple computer. Yeah, I completely missed that, Sleepwalker. Sorry. So yeah. Oh, there you go. So says his dad is allergic. So yeah, that's a thing. So yeah, Marcus says.
Continue. No. It's completely unrelated and inappropriate.
Okay then. Marcus says there's more caffeine in tea than coffee. This is a half truth.
This is a conversation that I feel gets regurgitated many, many times, and it's kind of a case of it's like
TLDR. Yes, but you use more coffee to make a mug of coffee than you would tea. So let's pretend that there is 10 milligrams of caffeine in 10 milligrams of caffeine in 100 grams of tea. And however, coffee only has 5 milligrams per 100 grams of coffee. But you have to use 200 grams of coffee to make a mug instead of 100 grams of tea. So it actually ends up being the same kind of thing. So the reality is a cup of coffee will have more caffeine in it because you use more coffee to make the mug of coffee.
This mug of coffee has more coffee in it than a mug of tea.
Yes. Anyway. So yes, there's more ducks in Mexico than in my garden shed.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I'm also not entirely certain that the statement by either of them is accurate as the generic statement that is made.
I'm not 100% certain. I know that the important thing is that it's a disingenuous statement in that it misses key information kind of thing.
Yeah, because there's also got to be a consideration of bioreactivity and all of that stuff of just because it has more caffeine in there, does it mean it actually does anything in you? What is the digestive process, etc., etc.? So yes, it's a very long, complicated, and possibly boring answer. to a thing of, does it actually matter?
Yes.
Maybe the comment should be, I feel ill now. I should have had less.
Yes. I am reminded of the fact that Veritasium has just... I haven't watched it yet, but they've just released... Veritasium did the whole thing about electricity not working the way that people think it does. And there was a big hoo-ha about it in the electronics engineering world.
Because it was also the case of you are presenting something that is unproven as fact.
And also just misrepresenting information in a manner where you're just like, you're technically correct, but also that is not important kind of thing. But yeah, he's just done another video where he's apparently conducted the experiment to prove it. And it's just like, oh my God, dude, yeah, we know you're technically correct, but also you're missing the point. The reason why we explain it in a different way is because that different way is about 1 billion times easier to understand and works in 99% of cases.
It's also the case of I haven't seen his new video, but it's also a case of, as far as we're aware, we haven't proven that is the way that it works to the current limit of our understanding.
I think it is proven, or it is the current functional understanding. It is correct to our current level of knowledge.
Oh, interesting. Okay, because one of the comments back on the video saying why it was disingenuous was the fact of, well, we haven't actually experimentally proven it in a way that is agreed upon by people who know about this.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of going, if we're at the point of, I have proposed a theory, and you're going, see, it's the truth, because a man has proposed it. I'm kind of going, that's similar to going, all flightless, featherless animals are humans.
Yes. Yeah. But it's also, for me, it just boils down to the fact of it's the same reason why in circuit diagrams we still use conventional current flow rather than electron flow, because conventional current flow works and is much easier to understand.
Oh,
and
no.
No.
Yeah.
We know that electron flow is the opposite direction, and that's actual current, but conventional current flow is significantly easier to understand and works unless you're getting down to the physics, and most people aren't getting down to the physics.
I guess the other question as well is, which electron model are you using?
There you go then, yeah.
So are you using the multiple electron theory or the single electron theory? Where in fact in the universe there is only a single electron, but it's in a constant state of superposition. And wherever you observe it to be, its wave function is collapsing and thus existing. But anywhere else it is observed and required, it is also collapsing and existing. But there is in fact only a single electron in the universe.
I've enjoyed this conversation in English. And on that note, I think it's time to go. So... thank you very much for tuning in, everyone. We'll be back next week, and we'll probably have something practical on the bench.
Something turtles all the way down.
Yes. We'll find something. I was going to do this, but I didn't have a camera set up for it. So by next week, I will have sorted out a method of having the bench cam over here as well and stuff like that. But at any rate, we'll be doing stuff. Thank you for tuning in, everyone, and thanks for the comments on the mic setup this week. I'm glad that's worked out. The two of us will listen to the VOD a bit later on and be like, and we'll tweak it, because obviously we haven't fettled this setup. But I'm quite glad. I like not having to have the condenser mic sitting anywhere, because we were stuck in a problem where we had it either low down, so it picked up all the desk noise, or we had it high up where it was in the way somewhere. Whereas now we can just sit here with 2 lapel mics and a laptop, and yeah, I like this. This is very comfortable. So yeah. See you all next time. Oh yes, Chris, thanks you for the... You DM me. You DM me, because I will forget. DM me.
It's true.
And also ferret systems. Yes.
Ferret systems.
Yeah, for US measurements, we've got to measure the microphone height in ferrets.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, hang a mic from the roof. It's still going to be in the way.
I thought it was a mistyping of ferrite.
Oh right. I didn't mean to say right then. I'm going to hit stop streaming now. Goodbye, everyone. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.
Ta-ra.
Did it.